Flint Board of Education regular board meeting for November 16th, 2022 is starting up. It is 6:30 p.m. I would like to call the Flint Board of Education regular board meeting to order. Board members, as I call your name, please reply present for the board's records. Vice President Del Maroney is absent. Trustee Gilbert is absent. Ms. McNeil?
Oh, present. Couldn't hardly hear you.
I'm sorry. Ms. Moose? Present. Ms. McIntyre? And myself, Carol McIntosh, present. Board members not present, Del Maroney and Gilbert. I will now call upon Secretary Booz to read the district's mission statement.
The district mission statement. It is the mission of the board, the Flint School District, to develop a community of learners who are prepared to live, work, and contribute in an ever-changing society. Excuse me. Flint Board of Education standards of practice. In order to provide outstanding leadership and better serve the community school, we, the members of the Flint Board of Education, commit to the following standards of practice. Number one, we will be consistent in our dealing with each other as well as students, staff, and community.
We will model trustworthiness and honesty in our relationships with each other, with our superintendent, and with our constituents.
We will focus on common goals of providing the best education possible for the students in the Flint community schools.
As well as the view of others that we interact with as we carry out the business of the Board of Education.
We will be open and authentic with each other, our staff, and community.
As we work to make decisions, we will focus on our issues and not personalities.
Our decision will be student-centered and based upon objective facts.
We will practice good listening skills to better understand our fellow Board of Education members and constituents.
Thank you. I seek a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the October 12, 2022 Board Committee of the Whole meeting and the October 26, 2022 regular board meeting.
Support.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any corrections? Seeing none, motion to approve the minutes from September 14, 2022 Board Committee of the Whole meeting, September 21st, 2022 Board Committee of the Whole meeting. Yes. Go ahead.
What's the date?
It says on September 14th. Here's
October 12th, October 26th.
Okay, that's not one.
She probably changed the dates for the holiday.
I'm gonna skip down. Yeah, right here, that's wrong. Okay, so yeah, it was a typo on my thing, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so they are from October 12, 2022, and from October 26, 2022. Regular board meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Is that satisfactory for you, Ms. Laura? Okay. From the regular board meeting, well, I'll take it from the top. Seeing the motion to approve the minutes from October 12, 2022 and October 26, 2022 Board Committee of the Whole meeting and Board Committee of the Whole meeting and the regular board meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. As I call your name, say yes to accept or no to not accept the minutes. Joyce McNeil,
Yes.
Linda Booz,
Yes.
Laura McIntyre,
Yes.
and myself. The minutes are approved. 4 yes, 2 absent, Del Maroney and Gilbert. Now we'll go to the superintendent's communique, and I will turn the floor over to Superintendent Jones.
Greetings, board members, greetings to our community. As I like to do for each of the communiques, I want to start with some of the many positive stories happening in our district every day. Southwestern High School and Homestead Middle School Academy hosted a student showcase art walk on Friday, November 11th in downtown Flint. It is incredible to see our scholars expressing their inner artists, and through these types of events and partnerships, we are giving them the opportunity to present their art in a new light. We are proud of our amazing scholars and educators for making this event successful, and we look forward to continuing to work alongside the greater Flint community to give our scholars more opportunities like this. I'm happy to report that Homestead Middle School Academy was recently selected to be a recipient of 136,000 disinfectant wipes as part of Lysol's Here for Healthy Schools initiative and the Kids in Need Foundation. Disinfectant products are a key piece in making sure our schools stay clean, especially given both COVID-19 and the flu season. These disinfectant wipes will be used to clean shared spaces, frequently touched surfaces, and classroom areas, with additional wipes being sent directly to the district's family. We want to especially thank Ms. Susan Burr, an AmeriCorps Vista member at Holmes, who joined the district last spring and was key to securing this important resource. It was incredible seeing a full truckload of Lysol wipes packed across 60 pallets being delivered to our district. Thank you, Ms. Bird, Lysol, Kids in Need Foundation, and the Here for Healthy Schools initiative for going above and beyond to provide a safe and healthy environment for our scholars, families, teachers, staff, and visitors. Let's give them a hand if we will. Thank you. After the school day is complete, we encourage our scholars to get involved in after-school programs. We are proud to partner with the Prim Sports Program to offer after-school sports programming throughout the school year. And we encourage our scholars to get involved. Whether it's cross-country, basketball, flag football, archery, scholars who participate in these programs are learning both the fundamentals of the sport as well as how to be a leader on and off the field. This program, in combination with Flint Athletics, is providing scholars with a safe space to stay active and hone these skills. As a community, let's continue to encourage and cheer on our scholars. We are excited to participate in our Giving Thanks event this coming Saturday at Northwestern High School. Over 400 families will be given 10 days worth of food for their families. This annual event is sponsored by our Flint Community Schools and our food service partners. We would like to thank Chartwell's Board of Education for their ongoing commitment to Flint Community Schools. The board, administration, and the district's teachers and staff all contribute to a shared mission to provide the children and families of Flint Community Schools excellence across academics, wraparound services, and extracurricular activities. The time, sacrifice, and energy necessary to be on a board is often an understatement. So I want to thank everyone who ran for the Flint Board of Education and demonstrated their commitment to our scholars and community. While the vote is still being certified, I know that there will be new faces on this stage. joining our efforts to renovate, rebuild, and re-energize Flint Community Schools. My administration looks forward to all the work that we will be able to do as we unify together. But I also want to thank those who are current board members for your time and your sacrifice over the years and the time that you shared on this board. We, the administration at Flint Community Schools, thank you for your service and your dedication. Flint Community Schools continues to focus on both current and future Flint scholars, and we remain committed to providing an education that will prepare them for a successful future. As we reflect on the numerous successes of our scholars so far, we look forward to creating new memories and opportunities for each scholar to shine and find success, both in and out of the classroom. From renovating our school buildings to best serve our scholars and teachers, adding new members to the Board of Education, or providing new opportunities for scholars to soar, we will continue to build upon our successes while standing with you every step of the way. As always, my goal is our success, and we will remain Flint focused together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Addition piece, as well as renovations to the early childhood PK classrooms in the first floor of the old 1901 building. That involved new partitions, new ceilings, new lighting, new technology throughout the spaces, and then some additional flexible collaboration areas in some of the kind of in-between spaces where we found that there were opportunities to extend learning beyond the classrooms. So that, if we advance down, the project schedule is great as we presented previously to you all. We are still anticipating construction to start in the new year. furniture and equipment to be moved in June with occupancy mid-June so that the school can take off without a hitch when you all are ready to return. Did you want to mention anything else?
Just that we bid it out, and as it was presented last week, we're under budget and we're writing contracts to the contractors and going to start work on it.
So great news. Really excited to see that one off and running. The Potter Elementary project is, as a reminder, renovation and update of the existing auditorium space, which has for some time experienced water infiltration through a leaky roof, and some of the seats have seen water damage, and so this is a full renovation of that space to bring it back to its sort of former glory, to be able to use it as intended as a multi-purpose community space, really, for their elementary community. Included in that is new technology, AV, presentation technology, lighting. I believe that one of the agenda items here tonight is to allow us to bring on an AV consultant to really hone in what the needs are for that scope of the work, and then to produce the documentation and solicit bids and everything that has to do with that performance and lighting technology. So if you flip down, as an update to this scope of work, we have been able to put a preliminary estimate together, just like we did for the Doyle Ryder project. So the scenario is that we, figure out what the design wants to be. We work hand in hand with Clark Construction to put together an estimate, and then we decide to proceed with the scope of work. What we're finding here is that the anticipated total project cost is right under $2 million for that school.
Yeah. Also has mechanical upgrades included in that, so we will add cooling into that room,
Yep.
And fresh air intakes. And fresh air intake for current codes for HVAC.
So if the board decides to move forward with that scope of work in that project, the anticipated schedule is listed here. Construction to start April 2023. Furniture and equipment to move in, similar to the Doyle Ryder project, to get you all back in to teach and learn in that space in the coming fall. Any questions with either of those?
When you were talking about Doyle Ryder, you said new partitions, and I thought we were getting rid of partitions and adding them.
Yes, we're making all the classrooms into individual classrooms. That's what he's saying. We're partitioning all the classrooms to make them functional spaces separate. So there'll be drywall studs all over the deck. You won't be able to hear the next classroom over. It'll be full classroom, individual classrooms from the open concept.
Okay.
Yep.
And you said about this new space over at Power, so does that mean Power will no longer have an auditorium, or is this space going to be able to double as an auditorium or something else?
It will be the auditorium shell itself stays, with the exception of the roof, which needs to be replaced, of course, because of all the water damage. But the space that's there will remain as is. We're not demoing the shell, we're not demoing the walls or the floor.
The stands will still be there?
Yes. We're basically going to upgrade the entire space to the roof to be fixed, new air conditioning, heating, new seats. The stage will be repaired and refinished. There'll be new curtains, so it'll be a modern auditorium for elementary school.
Okay. And you said that you'll be able to do all of that. That's not including the roof, but this new everything else, for $2 million. And that's all in, that's the whole kit and caboodle.
As we see the project today, yes, we've accounted for, contingencies like that in our dollar amount, but yes, we would let's the entirety of what it's going to cost to fix less staff. So I'll just give you, at this point, at this point, we come up with a program, and we put money into it, so we're basically saying this was gonna cost, or less. Similar to Doyle Rider, which doesn't cost X, it came in numbers. So.
I want to thank you for your presentation. I remember walking through with you guys. I went with some of the board members at Potter. So we are just going to have a brand new auditorium when we're done. Everything is going to be new. But I couldn't understand what you were seeking support for addition consultant. What was that consultant?
The audio video consultant.
Okay.
There is more of a specialty firm to help with the procurement and the design of the systems to make that place really sing.
So from my understanding, that with Dora Ryder and Potter, I think you said we did a savings. I mean, when we first got started, we was 41 something. I believe you said you had an opportunity to get it a little down a little cheaper. Am I understanding?
Yeah, when bids came in, it was cheaper. It was about 15% cheaper than what we estimated it at when bids actually came in from the contractors.
Okay. Looking forward to that moving, John. Thank you.
And how much is that project going to cost the district for this audio video?
It's within that dollar amount we showed. It's just kind of buried in there.
Is it within the 2 million?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that just under $2 million is all encompassing, including the audio visual, the way we see it today, based on historical and similar districts.
So the only thing will be left to do in this space is put a new roof on it.
The roof is part of it.
The roof is included in the 2 million, okay.
So when we're done, that auditorium will be a new roof, new seats. It'll look like a brand new area.
Okay.
Including audiovisual systems in the room that will handle what that school needs, or what your scholars need for, whether it's, teaching, or it is play, or it is, whatever you want to use that space for. That's why they'd like to hire an audiovisual to kind of get that system right size. We don't spend too much money on something you don't need.
And these people who you found, their bid is included in 2 million. Okay.
There was that fee was, I think it was yours, right? That's what they were approving tonight.
Yes.
All right. Dr. Joyce?
Yeah, Chris,
Did you have any other questions?
So, Mr. John, when they finish with the auditorium, then we move in, hopefully by June, Potter moves over to Dora Ryder, and then we do renovation at Potter.
All of these projects should be done this summer, and Potter will just take over their whole building again.
Okay.
So Ryder's gonna move out and go back to their space.
So will we be doing classroom renovation and painting at Potter as well? During the same time we're doing these projects?
So we haven't got that.
To that point, okay.
Yet. We haven't gotten to that, but I'm sure we'll have a discussion.
Okay.
Mr. Delmarone?
Thank you. So, I see the furniture replacement in all 11 schools, and that in itself is a good thing. But at some point, the Board of Education will be closing schools. And it very well may be some of those 11. I could probably say it will be some of those 11. So how do we account for that? If 3 months from now they decide to close a couple of schools, and what are we going to do for
Sure. Our tactic right now to anticipate that is that we're designing and we're scaling the furniture, with a little bit of fluff for your student count. Not for the classrooms that you have existing, which I think would be unattainable with the budget that we have for furniture replacement. To design and purchase new furniture for every single classroom in the district as it stands now, which is much more than likely need, right? I think we all acknowledge that.
going into the future, for sure?
For going into the future. The other tactic that we're taking is that furniture will be nimble enough to slide from one building to another building seamlessly. And that, we're looking at elementary schools as a sort of projects. Looking at the middle schools, it's sort of scale of project, and the high school, of course, gets its own scale of furniture. So as you decide which schools to prioritize, you'll have the ability to manipulate the furniture in such a way to benefit your school.
So we can move furniture around. Well, let me first say, you bring up a good point about losing students as far as student count and that. So obviously we wouldn't need as many chairs as then. The point I'm trying to get to, and the nimble part is good, we can move it from one school to the other. But if let's say we buy 1,000 chairs, 800 chairs for elementary, and we close some buildings, the building where those chairs are will no longer be needed. Well, I guess the chairs could then move the students to whatever building they're in. Okay, but yeah, student count's a good point for the administration or the board to keep in mind.
Sure, so part of this exercise, we've been working with Chris. He's been helping us to understand how many students are in each building, how many classrooms we have, which, you know, sort of matters in what we're doing with this project, but more importantly, it's the number of students and the number of teaching stations, the number of teacher locations. So as we provide new desk and chair for each student, they're accommodated and accounted for. Likewise for each teacher throughout the district.
The tables, will they, I mean, chairs you can move pretty easy, and the tables too, but will the tables accommodate more than one student if they want to do let me say, a team activity, a team project?
Sure, which we haven't really gotten to that point just yet. Next week we start in earnest with the boots on the ground sort of validation. Me and my interior designer, furniture specialist will be in the district. We're starting with DTM, Potter, and Southwestern next week to walk the facility with Chris to get a feel of what you have and where it's at there. So we haven't yet gotten to the point of working with your district academic leadership to kind of vision what the future of the current needs and the future needs are for your academics. But the trend nowadays is that furniture is hyper flexible, it's really nimble and agile. Teachers can bring students together in groups quickly, break them apart for testing or for solo work. So tables and chairs are all shaped in a way that kind of complement one another, but they come together and break apart. Really very easy.
Thank you, very good.
Are there any further questions? Thank you so much for your presentation.
Oh, we have just a little bit more
sorry.
to share. So the furniture, this is kind of the furniture update. We're in the midst of it, getting to the nitty-gritty, really exciting parts where we get to start to communicate with your district leadership and figure out the goals, set the goals for what the project's really about. The parking lot restoration work is well underway. We're currently completing surveys and soil borings. Since our last presentation about a month ago, we've since added in Potter and Brownell as part of the group. So those will be getting new surfaces as well. And then construction for that still is to start in the spring as soon as the weather breaks. Now, the big thing we've been up to is completing the facility assessment at Northwestern. Clark and Stantec, me and my engineering team, I had the ability to go out there and tour the facility, assess what the condition is, all on the goal of returning students into that space, right? To restore it as, well, there's kind of two tracks here we'll get into in a minute. One track that we assessed initially was just bringing students back to the building, sort of as it is, as a high school, right? Whether or not the district actually needs that was separate from the study, but we wanted to just take it at surface value to assess what we have, what needs to be fixed up because of maintenance or age and or code issues or functional things that are not right with the facility. This included everything having to do with the building and everything having to do with the existing site. So the parking lots, the athletics areas, the stadium, and we put our heads together with Clark and assessed that it would take, hold on, please, flip down. Want to talk to us?
Sure, so a full restoration of Northwestern as sits. As you can see, we came to a project total of $110 million roughly. That is literally just taking the building and putting it back to its function as what it is today. That includes the pool renovation, it includes new tennis courts, it also includes the stadium rework and parking lots.
It's a big building.
Yes,
guys.
It's a really big building. It's definitely very large. There's a lot to go through it. So, just to basically make it what it is, what it was in 1960, whenever it was built, bring it up to code and get all the asbestos out and all the things that need to happen. So, about $110 million just to renovate that.
That's say that 275. 1,000 square feet. You know, at its height, I think there was around 2,000 students that were in the building at one time.
Yeah.
So the reality is that it's probably much bigger than what the district needs for it to be. Right? So discussing that with Mr. Jones, he asked, well, what would it look like if maybe the function changed? And so we looked at an alternative scenario where it becomes a K through 8 academy to serve the city's north side. And that, of course, triggers some other changes in how classrooms are sort of distributed, the size of classrooms, toilet fixture requirements for little kids are much different than they are for high schoolers. So that actually adds cost to the project, to change it functionally from it being just a high school to something that services students of a different age, scholars of younger age. So that number is, if we can scroll down a little bit, conceptually, this is all conceptual estimate without really putting drawing to paper, and we're just looking at kind of big numbers here, right?
Yeah, some of the things that they talked about with programming changes, with adding bathrooms in places where there were bathrooms before, it really starts driving up costs for softening the floors, or finding maybe sewer mains that aren't the right spots, that didn't really tell us where they were at back then. So, it starts driving costs up, and it ends up being almost $134 million to then to change how the function of the building is for a K through 8 building. So that was the next step that we, the next chore was, okay, if we change this, what is it now? So price tag to change the function of the building.
Right.
And furthermore, to complicate that, I think, is the sort of the quality of the spaces in that building. The quality of the teaching and learning environments that are in that building. The reality is the classrooms are all inbound of the window. The classrooms don't have windows in that building. The corridors
have the windows.
The corridors get the windows. The corridors are at the perimeter, and then the classrooms are inbound. So to bring natural light into the classrooms, which they don't really have now, would take maybe even more work to pull down walls and change circulation routes within the building. And you're still left with a structure that's 275,000 square feet, which is, I mean, that's almost 300 square feet per student. Traditionally, we're planning for buildings that are 150 or so square feet per student. So Mr. Jones is like, whoa, guys, we're going the wrong way here. Hang on a second. So what would it look like if we were to maybe start fresh? What would it look like to right-size a facility on that site for maybe 1,000 students, is where we kind of started. And so if you slide down to the next one, we went through the exercise of really scaling back the size of the structure so that it's not too big for you to maintain over the years, so that it's more appropriate to the little bodies that might be in the building. And then it really has the kind of blend of 21st century teaching and learning spaces that would really propel the district in ways that I think would be so valuable for you all. So what that number, you want to talk about the number?
Yeah.
Real quick.
Sure.
So when you say scaling back,
Yes.
how would that be categorized? Would it be categorized as a new build or as renovation? Would it be something that we would be able to fund through ESSER funds, or how would that work? I mean, is this like a new?
This slide is the new K that's 150,000 square feet.
So you're talking about a completely new building or renovating an existing part of the
So this-
250,000?
And maybe I can probably answer your question if I.
Okay.
So this slide represents a new K building with taking Northwestern to the ground. So we would then build a new K building on that property. Some of the benefits to this, I know they're big numbers, and some of the benefits is you get a 2022 envelope. So you get the best, you get a building that's energy efficient. Right now, that building is not energy efficient. If we only spend $130 million in that building, I'll never change the envelope of it. When I say that, the brick and block.
The outside walls.
The outside
And the
walls
roof
don't
system.
have insulation in them.
Yeah.
That's not the way they built them back in the 60s.
Yeah, so I mean, that's not, I'm not quibbling with you about that. I'm just trying to operate within the constrictions, I guess, that we have, where we're kind of denied building new buildings, like with the funding that we're getting, it's like so tightly bound to specific requirements.
Yeah.
That we're prohibited from, putting any of that money towards new buildings, and it has to be renovations. I mean, we don't necessarily want to renovate a building that doesn't have any natural light and is, obsolete and that kind of thing, but, with the way that the funding is tied up. So that was, I guess, my question.
Okay.
So this would be
Tear it down.
Northwest tear down, this would be a brand new building.
Correct.
Okay. That was my question. And I'm not arguing against that, I'm just trying to wrap my head around
I
the
understand.
money that we have and how we're allowed to spend it.
Yep. And I don't know what I guess I would go back to your attorneys on that one to understand what that parameters, maybe leave the gym there or something. You can renovate something and tear most of it down and consider it to be a renovation. So we were just asked to say, what does a new K building look like? What does that cost? And this is where we came up with. This is, K through 8, all the spaces that are required for a K through 8 building, the gyms, the art rooms, the classrooms, the offices, some separation between the K through 5 and the 6 through 8. So we put our heads together, and this is what the cost we came up with based on what we've seen with other buildings we've built and other school districts. So, and also historical just costs we see every day as doing this for a living. So, as it is another big number, it's, part of that's tied up with taking Northwestern down, abating Northwestern, and then coming back out of the ground with a new facility.
And this number still includes all new athletics and
Yes.
exterior field amenities, sports amenities.
This wouldn't incorporate, this wouldn't incorporate like the old, it would be a complete tear down of our driving range, tennis courts,
Yeah.
athletic fields, all of that. It would all be new. That's what you're saying.
The tennis courts would be brand new. The, I think bleachers, and what's that? No, sorry, we didn't talk about the driving range. That was off to the side.
And
Sorry.
I want to say, I just want to say this right quick, and then I can. So we're willing to tear a building that's standing down and build a new building, and we got a building that's on fire every other day, and that's dilapidated, that we're not going to tear down and address. I think that's a waste of money if that's what we're considering, but we have that right to consider everything. Go ahead, Ms. McNeil.
I think what we're doing is,
Just going through some scenarios, but I just want to put that out there. Go ahead.
we were just looking for assessment, based on.
Yes.
Options.
Options. Right.
Also, when you was doing this renovation assessment, did you look at the fact, when we was doing this assessment, did you look at the fact, with the cafeteria, how would that play in there? Because that's where we serve our food out of. So what's your thought on that?
Sure, we would have to put our heads together a little bit more with the district, I think, and figure out what the best scenario would be for
So
food
we-
service for the district.
There is a kitchen involved with this. We assumed kitchen remodel. We assumed money at the kitchen in a remodel. We assumed a new kitchen if we put a new building up.
We just had a new kitchen.
Because that is your serving kitchen that you serve all the district out of, yes, we do understand that. So we did set aside funds to rebuild that kitchen or to make upgrades to it in the sense of a remodel. So we kind of threw budgets against that as well.
Are there any, Mr. Del Morone?
Yeah, so in essence, what you're saying, we can build new for cheaper than remodeling. And if we build new and we go K through 8, we can probably just bulldoze Brownell and Holmes at the same time.
That hasn't been part of the conversation.
See, that's another part.
That piece.
Well, I
We
mean,
didn't
if
talk
we-
about any other schools, but what's happening on the northwestern sites.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that if we put K through 8 at Northwestern, where are you gonna get the students? They're over at Brownell and Holmes, right? And other places.
This is beyond the scope of Sandtech,
This
Chris.
is,
This is not part of their.
Mr. Jones wanted to speak.
Yeah, so this presentation was based on the ask for feasibility study.
Yes.
And to get scenarios. Stantec will not be able to answer what buildings are we going to determine to demolish and where college scholars are going to come from. That's not their scope of work. They're just doing what we asked for a feasibility study and presenting that information to us. We have to discuss what buildings is going to either be demolished or be closed. And this is just a scenario for what was asked by the Board of Education.
Does this scenario include moving the administration into the site?
No, Chris, they wouldn't. No, we haven't discussed that.
That was not asked of us. It was just
Okay, so let me be open here. So the reason I asked that question is because we had a meeting yesterday at the administration building, and I sat across the table from a board that says, close the administration building, move to Northwestern.
What meeting was this?
I don't know.
What meeting are you talking about, Chris?
This was a meeting yesterday between the superintendent, board president, myself, and the secretary.
This was my one-on-one with the board president.
Ah,
Yes.
gotcha. So not an open meeting?
Well,
Not an
Not
announced
required to be an
meeting.
open meeting.
Exactly.
Not required to be an open meeting.
Exactly. We have a right to meet.
Do not mislead the public.
Man, that's where we spend most of our time.
It was not required to be an open meeting. We had a meeting. That's the end.
Oh, my God.
The
So,
truth and nothing but the truth.
so because that's brought up, it is our job to bring scenarios to the Board of Education And the work that we're doing in the conference room is to try to pre-plan for scenarios that we can bring to the Board of Education. So because that was up on the board doesn't mean that that is something that the board has decided. So I just
So-
want to say that that was the work that
The
we're
board
doing.
has not decided. Has the administration decided?
We haven't decided anything.
So we have an unofficial meeting.
Excuse me. First of all, we did not have it's official
All
that
right,
the
so
president order.
With two board members
Excuse me,
who
ma'am.
aren't going to be here
Ma'am,
in a month or
remove
two.
her, remove her.
Making these
You're
decisions?
not,
Okay.
you're not gonna go haywire, and you're not gonna tell a bunch of lies at this meeting. It is a scheduled one-on-one with the superintendent and the president every other Monday, and we moved it to Tuesday, which we have that right to meet. We don't have to check with you because we're meeting, and it's not illegal. It is scheduled, and it's been on the books for decades, okay?
Decades.
That's right. That means it's been scheduled a long time. Can you comprehend that, Ms. McNeil?
For the public, they normally, when you have those one-on-ones, those different discussion comes up. Anything can come up because they're preparing to bring something before the board. And there's not a violation of open meeting act because there was a discussion, maybe we just present it that way.
No, just a violation of the public trust, that's all.
It's been brought up. It's been brought up
We
tonight.
We know exactly what's happened, we know.
Okay,
I had the
excuse me.
floor. I
She
had the
did,
floor.
and you gonna stop being out of order. Stop.
Excuse me, can we respect the
That's-
speakers and move on?
Yes, we
Okay,
can, but we're
yes.
gonna get some order
Let's
first.
stop
And when
this.
you're not recognized, please don't
I'm
speak.
sorry, we
Thank
need
you,
to
Ms.
stop.
McNeil.
I just want to make this point. We're leaving out of here at 9 o'clock. I advise us to use our time wisely. They're here to present a presentation. And we'll jot down whatever we want to talk about, the board or disagreement, that's board. I don't see anything wrong with, having a discussion about some things between the president and the superintendent. Long there was no action made, I don't think we did anything wrong. But we're going too far over here to the right when we just come in here to look at, is Northwestern worth of spending the money in after we did the study? All of this other stuff we're asking is beyond their scope and is a disrespect for their time. If it's okay and it pleases the board that we move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Jones would like to speak.
For the record, what was on my board was not on the agenda yesterday, and it was not discussed at all in the meeting.
Thank
That's
you.
my personal board that I do my work on, and that had nothing to do with the agenda that we had for yesterday, for the record.
The superintendent is correct. Nothing
And nor was
spoken
it
about.
discussed. Thank you. Okay, moving forward.
Can we get the presentation?
Back to the presentation. Go ahead, sir.
I believe that's all we have, right? We're at the end here. Oh, I guess we wanted to include an image of the site here to really show the amount of area that's available and how much the 280,000 square feet of the existing facility takes up on the site. By comparison, the building next door is around 800 or so students. So you can imagine that a similar facility for 1,000 would be, around the same size.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions for them before they depart? Thank you.
Madam President, I do have a question.
Excuse me, Ms.
So-
McNeil.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
So after we did this here, maybe we get it back and we have a discussion where we move to what we should do with Northwestern after this, when they did their presentation, then the board will have that other discussion about Northwestern, what we're gonna do with it. That's what all this presentation was about, was to see what we was gonna do with Northwestern.
Well, we've discussed it. I thought you said this was just information.
Yeah, that's what I said, just information, then we'll move forward at another date.
Okay, the board will now hear comments from the public.
What about Stevenson and Company?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, they won't, you're right. I'm jumping ahead on my agenda. Now we will have a presentation from the auditors, Stevenson and Company. Please come to the stage for your presentation. Good evening.
My name's Cindy Scott. I'm a partner at Stevenson and Company, and we grab that. And I'm in charge of everything firm-wide that we do for schools. So that includes everything from auditing, which is what we did for Flint Public Schools, business manager services, consulting services, compliance testing for the state, you name it. I have with me Nathan Miller. Nathan is a CPA for the firm. He's a manager, and he was the managing in charge of the Flint Schools audit. Now, we put in front of you two bound reports. So there's a thick one. That's the actual financial statement audit that we'll talk through. And then there's a thin report. That's the single audit, which is the federal grants audit report that we'll talk through as well. Now, what Nathan and I like to do is we like to use the PowerPoint presentation that's on the screen so we can talk through what's changed. What big items came up during the audit this year? What numbers are you going to see that are going to look different than last year? And talk through the big ticket areas and not waste your evening going through every single page. But I do encourage you, look through everything. We have our contact information in there. As well, I know I sent every one of you a letter at the start of the audit to let you know when we'd be on site and how to get a hold of us. So if you do come across questions as you review this on your own, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or to Nathan. But just to save your evening, we'll go through the PowerPoint, and that way we can just talk on the big topics. Where are we pointing? Oh, there we go. So first off, why do we do what we do? The entire reason we come out and do the audit and spend, I think we were out here about 3 weeks auditing the financial statements, is yes, we issue a pretty little report for you, but it's not to say whether or not you're in good financial standing or poor financial standing. We're here to say, is this information accurate and free of material misstatement? And the paragraph that I have on the screen is just one paragraph out of the opinion letter that we issue. So the whole reason you have this huge report is for that 2 or 3 page opinion letter to say, yes, you can rely on this information. We can provide reasonable assurance that it is accurate and free of material misstatement. What I think is important to point out to boards is that with auditing, it is impossible for us to provide absolute assurance. We do testings of controls, we do testings of accounts, we look at your internal control structures and analytically test everything. But it is not possible to ever give absolute assurance, but we give reasonable assurance. We were able to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which means, yes, it is free of material misstatement. Next slide. So then if you were going through that thick report, beginning on page 3 is what's called the management's discussion and analysis. I really encourage each of you to read through the management's discussion and analysis page by page, line by line. It is a recap of the year. It's in layman's terms. It's an easier read, and it just helps you get a feel for what happened during the year and how things went. And it's more of a sentence structure than trying to read tables and charts. This also, in the management's discussion and analysis, a couple important areas is on page 4. It details out your capital outlay additions for the year, so that would be your big purchases. And it also goes on to discuss economic factors in next year's budget so that you can have a feel for what's coming down the road. Then beginning on page 8, are the government-wide financial statements. Now, just to give you a quick recap of how your financials are structured, your financial statements are comprised of 2 different sets of financial data. You have your fund financial statements, which are going to be what you're used to looking at. That's what you budget in accordance with. That's what's being provided to you from the finance department on a monthly basis. And that's where you're looking at each individual fund, and it's more on a current basis. So you're having your general fund and your food service fund and so on. But then once a year at audit time, all of those funds get compiled into one big picture set of information, and that's what we call the government-wide financial statements. So this is that big picture view of all of those funds, and then added into that is the long-term activity, which would be your land, your building, your equipment. It would also be the net pension liability that we're going to talk quite a bit about, and the OPEB liability, and any debt that you have, and so on. So it's that really big picture view where almost if you were looking at it from a business perspective, you'd be looking at what is your bottom line at the end of the day. So looking at that big picture view, you do end the year with a deficit of $49,986,196.
Yes.
However, I don't want that to panic you. Every school district in the state of Michigan is in the same situation, and it's directly related to the net pension liability. The net pension liability is a multi-billion-dollar liability at the state level, where the state has an actuarial valuation done every year, where they look at assumptions of at what age is the average female employee going to retire, or male employee going to retire, or more morbidly, at what age is the average female past employee going to pass away, or male employee pass away, and at what rate of return do we anticipate gaining on those assets that are being held at the state over the next 30 years. So there's a lot of assumptions that go into that, and then every year the state issues this valuation that says, okay, here's that multi-billion-dollar liability that no one in this room has any say over. Here's the number, and it is what it is. And then they proportion that out, and every school district gets a piece of the pie. So you're provided that number, and there's nothing you can do about it. And what's really important to understand is because it's an estimate and it's based on all of those assumptions, it can and it will change drastically from year to year. So as of June 30th, 2022, your net pension liability was $51,739,733. So you can see that pulling that out, you wouldn't be in a deficit anymore as a whole. Now the OPEB liability, all the same factors are true that I just explained on the net pension liability, but the difference is this is not related to cash pension payments that would be paid out. These are the health costs of your current and past employees, the future health costs. So that other post-employment benefit liability at June 30th was $3,214,489. We will talk about how that fluctuated from last year in just a minute, but does anybody have any questions on what those two big numbers are? Because that net pension liability is the largest liability on your financial statement. All right, let's jump to the next slide. So again, we're still looking at big picture view, and I want to talk through what we see as big picture changes on the revenue and the expense side, and I'm looking at all funds combined. On the revenue side, total revenues decreased about $6.9 million. And the key areas that are affecting that is that your property taxes decreased about $116,000. Your federal grants outside of the COVID grants decreased about $1.7 million, the biggest piece of that being Title I going down. Your state aid and categorical dollars from the state decreased about $9.6 million, and the biggest change there is that your pupil count that you receive your foundation allowance on decreased 671 FTEs. Your federal lunch program revenues decreased about $1.6 million. Your gain on sale of assets decreased roughly $48,000. And then those decreases were then offset by increased local donations, rent income, charges for services, and other revenues of about $400,000, and also offset by increased COVID-19 related federal grants of $6 million. On the expense side, total expenses decreased roughly $17 million, but I have to say that's very deceiving. We just talked about the net pension liability and OPEB liability and how that can fluctuate drastically from year to year, and it did. The next slide that we'll go to in a minute will show you how much those fluctuated, but the offset of those fluctuations has to run through your current year expenses. So your current year
net pension liability and OPEB liability expenses were reduced by about $15 million because of the fluctuations in those liabilities. So that huge decrease, along with a decrease in your COVID-related technology and supply costs. So a year ago, you spent a significant amount on technology and supplies, PPE supplies for COVID, about $4.9 million. Those two decreases were then offset by increased wages and related payroll costs of $1.3 million, and that was a decrease of about 15 FTEs staffing-wise, offset by pay increases and stipends. You also had increased purchase services of just over $1 million and increased special education transportation costs of about $400,000. So that net pension liability. The net pension liability decreased from last year by $30 million. Your piece of the pie, of the big picture pie, decreased as well by 0.01944%. On the OPEB side, your OPEB liability decreased by almost $9 million, and your piece of the pie decreased there by 0.01674%. Now, as exciting as it is that we see such huge decreases, I want to warn you now, I don't know, but I would anticipate we're going to see these go back up to some extent next year because our market is not improving, and so I would anticipate those anticipated rate of returns to go back down. But I don't know, and we won't know until that valuation comes out. So now, we get past all that long-term government-wide piece and we get into your fund statements. This is going to be what you're more familiar with, what you're used to looking at, and what you budget in accordance with. Now, you have 6 funds, and when we look at your funds, we separate them out between what we consider to be a major fund, meaning that a classification of activity is significant, your assets, your liabilities, your revenue, your expense. And then if it doesn't meet that definition, it gets combined into one column called other governmental funds. And for Flint this year, your general fund was the only major fund, and then the other remaining funds are all on page 10 combined in one column. Not to worry, if you go to the back of the financial statements, we do detail it out, but for simplicity here, it's all combined. So looking at your end of the year fund balance, the general fund ended the year at $43,117,737. Now, fund balance is made up of 5 different categories. First, you have non-spendable fund balance. This would be prepaid expenses, inventory. These are things that you've already paid for. That's part of your fund balance at the end of the year, but you don't actually have cash you can go spend on something. And you do have non-spendable fund balance of about just under $50,000. The next step down would be restricted fund balance, which is by legislation or grantor. It's restricted for a specific purpose. You do not have any restricted fund balance in your general fund, but you do in your capital projects funds, debt funds, and so on. The next step down is committed fund balance. When the board, by formal board motion or resolution, commits dollars to a specific purpose, those are committed. Below that would be assigned if the board or the superintendent or the business office assigns fund balance dollars. It's the same concept of a commitment, but it doesn't have to come through a formal board motion or resolution. That would be assigned. You do have assigned fund balance in that when you adopted your original budget for next year, you did adopt to dip into that fund balance. So that does show as an assignment. And then what's left is unassigned. The rule of thumb that is comfortable for me and gives me warm fuzzies about where you end up at the end of the year is for your fund balance, your unassigned fund balance as a percentage of your current year expenses to be between 15 and 20% at a minimum. Now, you ended the year at 61%, and that is a big reason to do with all the ESSER dollars coming in from the feds. That really helped your fund balance. So what I encourage you to do, I don't want you to look at that 61% and think, okay, it's too high, what do we do? That's not true. That's not true at all. What you need to do is you need to look at your big picture. I mean, we just heard a presentation about all the potentials that are out there. I encourage you to think big picture, think 5 to 10 years and try to actually document. It doesn't force you or commit you or tie your hands to doing anything. But if you can come up with a written plan of what do you think we want to do in the next 5 to 10 years and how much is that going to cost us, you as a board could formally commit your fund balance dollars to that purpose, commit that dollar amount of fund balance to that purpose. So then you can have a true view and picture of what your ending unassigned fund balance is. Now, as a board, you can uncommit dollars at any time. You can make that motion and say, the commitment we made last month, scratch it. But this would just allow you to have a better picture of, okay, right now we have 39 million of unassigned, but we know we have A, B, and C project in the next 5 to 10 years that's gonna take 30 million of that. We really only have 9 million unassigned. So what's our real percentage? So that would be my encouragement to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next, general fund revenues. I want to take a little bit of time and talk specifically about the general fund and nothing else. Now, normally when I do these presentations, I like to give you a 3-year view, but this is our first year doing your audit, and we're only given 1 year worth of back data from your predecessor auditors. So I'm only able to give you 2 years this year, but next year we'll have 3 and we'll build from there. So looking at your local dollars increased just a little bit. You can see that uptick, and I mentioned a little bit ago that you had more donations coming in, student activity dollars coming in, and so on. The state dollars, you can see your state sources plummet there by quite a bit, and that's related to the FTE count going down, your pupil count going down. Now, federal sources, this is going to look deceiving, and so I want to explain what's going on here. I had mentioned that you did get more COVID federal dollars, but you also spent less title federal dollars. So you really don't have as big of a federal increase as that appears. But what happened was a year ago, the request to the feds to get those dollars, or the request to the state of Michigan to receive those federal grant dollars, didn't happen right away at the end of the year. And if those dollars aren't in your bank accounts within 60 days, you can't recognize the revenue. So that means that about $4 million worth of revenue that was audited last year and part of last year's single audit had to be recorded as 2022 federal revenue, even though it relates to last year and not this year. Now, this year, the draws happened much quicker. I think a year ago there was a lot of changing of the guards during audit time, and that slowed things down. This year, those draws were made more timely. The dollars came back in, so I think that deferral portion not received within 60 days was closer to 400,000, where it was over 4 million last year. So this appears like you have a ton more federal revenue, but it's really timing, and that's why you don't see that on the government-wide, that big picture view, because that actually accounts for things in the year that it was earned. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. The interdistrict sources and the other financing sources, there's not much fluctuation there. That stayed pretty consistent. So again, another view, where's your revenue coming from? 57% came from federal sources. Again, that is skewed up a little bit because of the extra 4 million.
52.
What did I say?
57.
Oh, sorry, 52%. State sources, 34%. Local sources, 12%. Other sources, 0.01%, and interdistrict, 0.88. On the expense side, I mentioned that you were down about 15 FTEs, so about 15 full-time equivalent employees. However, you had pay increases, you had some stipends that were given out, so you do have an increase in salaries and wages, and you'll notice that as salaries and wages go up, so do the related employee benefits and taxes, and that's just always going to be the case. Supplies and other expenses went down, and again, that was last year you had a lot of PPE purchases and technology directly related to COVID. Purchase services were up. I want to say it's about 5% in the big picture, and when you look across at all the contracts, there wasn't any particular contract that stuck out. And then everything else stayed pretty consistent. So what makes up your cost? It's your people. And that's what we see at every school district we go to. It's your staffing. So your salaries and wages and employee benefits, that right there,
57.
57% of your costs are in your people. And then 33% are with purchase services, so the things that you're outsourcing. 8% in supplies and other, and then everything else is a percent or less. Beginning on page 14 of that bound report are the notes to the financial statements. I will not bore you and go through them all. There is many. If you really want to read into the net pension liability more, there's probably 8 or 9 pages or so talking about the assumptions and how they calculate it. So if you're bored, that's a fun one. But the things I do want to point out to you is there was a new accounting standard that had to be implemented this year, and that's GASB 87. What GASB 87 does is it takes away the concept of an operating lease and a capital lease. We used to have to evaluate every lease you were in and record them differently. Now, any agreement that the district enters into that's for more than 1 year, that's for a tangible item, so a copier, a school bus, a postage meter, renting space in a building, anything like that, we now have to come up with a calculation of the present value of the entire term of that agreement and record an asset and a liability on the books accordingly. Same thing goes if you're leasing something to another district, if you're leasing space. So we were able to analyze all of the district's agreements that met that definition, and they were not, when you added them all together, they were not material enough to have to go into your financial statements this year, so that was a good thing. It saved some work on the district. But what I want to point out is next year, the 23 audit, another accounting standard comes into play, and I think this one's going to be the toughie. This is GASB 96, and it's the same concept as what we just talked about with GASB 87, but instead of being for tangible things, it's all those intangibles, like software subscriptions, licenses, technology, all of that out in your computer world, which since COVID is everywhere. So this is going to be a very, very big undertaking. So what I've encouraged the business office to do is to start working with your technology people now. Start coming up with that listing that I think is going to be very long of every single agreement, subscription, license that's out there. Who's it with? What was the start date? What's the end date? What are the terms? What's the monthly cost? And then start putting copies of all those agreements in a folder. So that way, once you know you have a good solid list, we can work with the business office on how to start working those calculations so that the assets and liabilities can be recorded. So this will be a big undertaking for next year, but if you start now, it'll help you out. We are required to disclose, it's very vague, but anytime there is litigation going on in a school district, we are required to put that in the footnotes, but it's just the very blanket disclaimer that it's out there. Another thing we put out there is when the board does approve something, when they approve a contract prior to the end of the fiscal year that hasn't been completed at the end of the fiscal year, that's considered a commitment. So we do have a paragraph in there stating which commitments were out there. And you can see you had the Johnson Controls project, the Doyle Ryder roof project, as well as, can't quite read it from here, but a large project as well with the Doyle Ryder renovation project. So we do detail those out in the footnotes as well with what was the total project and how much remained at June 30th.
That paragraph is just the architecture percentage is describing that for those projects that are above.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. For subsequent events, when the board makes a motion to approve something after the end of the fiscal year but before the date of our audit report, we're required to disclose that as well. And so we do have 2 subsequent events there to approve, or that were approved. And one, now this is the Doyle Ryder interior renovation project, and this is the construction management related to that project.
Including that, yeah.
And then also the new curriculum through, I don't want to pronounce that company, SAVVAS? Savvis and Biozone. So those were the 2 subsequent events that were noted through our testing. On page 43 of the bound report, this starts some additional required information that we have to disclose. I find this kind of interesting. These 2 bullet points here tell you statewide, big picture, going back to the net pension liability and OPEB liability, the state as a whole. What percentage of that liability for the state as a whole is currently set aside in a trust? And for the net pension liability, it's 72.6%, and for the OPEB, it's 87.33%. Both of those were only at 59% last year. So that's how much that percentage of being funded came up. Again, I think next year we're going to be back closer to the 59, but we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. We also then go on to look at your budget. We are required to look at what did the board originally approve, what was the final budget that they came up with at the end of the year, and where did you really end up with the audited numbers, and then what's that variance. I can tell you, rule of thumb is that the state wants you to try to be within 5%. So your variance of where you actually end up and what you budget should be within 5% each year. You can see that you did exceed that. You're at 15.8% on the revenues and 12.1% on the expenses. But the good news is your revenues were higher than you thought and your expenses were lower than you thought. So that should not trigger anything with the state. If it were the other way around, the state would be sending a letter saying what happened. So that's just the goal should try to be that 5% mark. On page 48, I mentioned before all of those non-major governmental funds that they're combined in the front. Page 48 is where we break them apart. So you can see that individual information. And then beyond that, we go through your general fund and we tell you department by department, what did you budget? What did you spend? What did you spend last year? So that's not a required statement. We include that for your management use. I encourage you to use that as a management tool, especially with your budgeting. If you're trying to drill down to a certain area like your elementary school supplies, what did we spend this year? What did we spend last year? What did we budget? It's right there for you. So it's just a really good reference tool when you're trying to drill down to that level. Next is the single audit. Now this is that skinny bound report that you have. The single audit is when we have to issue a separate audit of your federal programs. And with uniform guidance, when you as a district spend more than $750,000 in federal revenue, we have to do an audit of those federal programs. And this year, the school district had $40,864,034 of federal revenues that were spent. So of that, we tested your ESSER programs, which included the GEAR and the ESSER, and that was $25,061,783. And we tested your special education cluster, which was $1,596,924. We are required to test 40% of your activity. Those two programs helped us attain 65%. And I am excited to say we tested it very thoroughly. We spent a lot of time and really made the finance department work hard for us, but we had no single audit findings that are required to be reported to the state or to the feds. So kudos to the business office, to the superintendent, and to Tish.
Great job, guys. Great job.
So finally, and this is probably one of the most important parts, is our management letter. This is our communication to you of not only canned required communication, but areas of recommendation. So while we did not have any findings, we do have some areas of recommendation for internal controls and so on. So this is going to be a loose letter in the back of your thick bound report. I do encourage you later to read the whole thing, line by line, because I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. That would drive you crazy. I'm going to touch on the hot topics, and I encourage you to read it. And then if you have questions, call me, call Nathan. We'd love to talk to you about it more thoroughly. But I'm just going to kind of go through the big pieces here. So for Appendix 1 of that letter, this is the canned required communication. We have to go through different areas. So first, significant audit matters. We have to disclose to you the new changes in accounting policy, GASB 87. And what's coming up? GASB 96. We talked about both of those. We also are required to inform you if there are any significant estimates included in your financial statements. Hey, that's your net pension liability and OPEB liability. That's not going away. Difficulties encountered. We did incur some difficulties that we're required to disclose to you. And the main difficulties we ran into during the audit were in obtaining board minutes, and we are going to talk about that more in the next appendix. And we also ran into some struggles with trying to grab information we needed for the single audit testing and some other testing from the Human Resources Department. I know there's been a lot of changing of the guards, and I know how short-staffed you guys are, but we are still required to disclose when we run into difficulties in doing our testing. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements, there were none material to the financial statements as a whole. There were no disagreements with management. Management provided us written representation at the end of the audit saying that they were not withholding any information from us and that everything they provided to us was accurate to the best of their knowledge. We're not aware of management consulting with any other auditors for a different opinion. We gave you an unmodified opinion. That is the best opinion that you can receive. And then there are no other issues or matters outside of what we'll talk about in Appendix 2. So next, Appendix 2. So I want to first explain the different levels here of comments. Appendix 2 is our management comments. These are our recommendations for whether it's a compliance area or whether it's just an internal control weakness that we want to talk about. Now, there's 4 different levels of comments here. What you have first is what's called a material weakness, and what this means by definition is if there is an area that is a significant piece of your financial statement, so it covers a significant component, and if it's reasonably possible that something could go wrong, doesn't mean it has, but it could, and if it did, it could be material, that would be a material weakness. If it's reasonably possible that something could go wrong, doesn't mean it did, but it could, but it wouldn't be material, but it could still have some sort of consequential effect, that would be a significant deficiency. We do have a few of those to talk about. First is financial statement preparation. I want to stress, this is just our disclaimer. It is completely acceptable by AICPA standards that you have your auditors draft your financial statements and put it in this nice report. But what we're disclaiming to you, what we're making you aware of, is that whenever we have to recommend journal entries be posted to management as part of our audit, it means had we drafted the financial statements with the first set of numbers that came to us without any adjustments, they would have been materially misstated. So really this is just us saying, okay, we're drafting this, which is okay and allowed, but there is a risk that if you rely on us without taking ownership of these numbers yourself, you could miss something that we missed. So this is just our disclaimer to you, making you understand that these are your financial statements that you have taken ownership of, that management has reviewed and approved, and it's just that disclaimer from us. I can tell you that when we report to the state will say, are there any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies other than financial statement preparation? The state doesn't care because they know we have to put it in there. So then next, any questions on that before I go on? Okay.
Financial statement?
Yes. Okay. So then for significant deficiencies, we have 3 to talk about. And again, this is not suggesting that something's wrong. This is saying that there's a weakness in a control that could allow for something to happen. And so we just want to make recommendations of ways that we could correct that. And first was with the payroll and personnel files. And I'm going to tell Nathan to jump in if I misspeak on any of these, because him and I did a lot of this testing together and kind of tag teamed it. But with our testing, we tested payroll many, many, many different ways in a lot of different facets of the audit, with our single audit testing, with our fraud testing, with our test of controls, and so on. And one common denominator that we found was that what was getting paid did not consistently match what was in the personnel file. Now, I'm not saying that they were being paid incorrectly, but you'd have approvals from the board to pay differentials for someone over here, or you'd have a signed differential form in the file here, but maybe that one has expired and there's a new one that didn't make it to the file yet. So we really had a challenge in trying to connect the dots. And the majority of what we found were just documentation issues, where we did eventually find the approval somewhere, but it was not an easy thing to find. And then there were some overpayments or underpayments or people getting paid incorrect amounts, because the payroll personnel were following what was in the file or what they were told, and things changed and they didn't know things changed and so on. So we have gone through all of those with management, and what we're recommending is that procedures be put in place where every single time there is a change to payroll, no matter how small, whatever it is, anytime there's a change to payroll, there should be a signed form in that employee's file that says the total amount that they should be paid. Not just the differential, because you don't want to have to add different documents together to come up with the total. One page that matches the total they're getting paid, and the payroll department should be informed that until that piece of paper is in their hands, what goes through the payroll system doesn't change. So that was one area that we had recommendations for. The next is with student activity fund. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So for like 11 months, I thought when we came on the board, and to me it's not about the money, but it's the process and procedure, which you folks look at. We were told, I thought we were getting a stipend for each meeting, $30. They said, no, it's not a stipend. You're an employee. It's payroll. I cannot get a check stub from the district that says what deductions I have. All I know is that something is deposited because we do direct deposit. So I don't know how much they took out for federal tax, state tax, city tax, Social Security, none of that stuff. Don't know what meeting it was paid for, just a meeting apparently. So I find that to be a problem. I find it also to be a problem when they issue us a check, because we have direct deposit, so we never see the check. We only know the amount that goes in. But they do on occasions issue checks, or at least to me, I don't know about other board members, for when we have training and we have to go out of town for it. And there is only one signature on the check. In my opinion, and I know it's done in different places, there are always two signatures, so that, you know, one eye is, you know, one's watching the other signature, I guess. Let me put it that way, as opposed to one signature. And I find that to be a problem, that only one person is signing a check. But that being said, I've yet to figure out how to get my deductions. What they're taking it out for, I have no idea. For all I know, they might be taking out for a pension that I'll never collect. So, I mean, I think it's just
I can't
wrong.
speak to what you're being provided because we don't see that side of it. We're testing that what you're getting paid is correct. So I can't speak to that piece, but I would encourage you to meet with.
Let me interrupt, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
How do you know what I'm getting paid for then? If you're looking to see what I'm getting paid, how do you know what I'm getting paid for? I mean, because for all I know, they're putting too much money in the direct deposit into my account, or not enough. And I'm trying to cover myself so that in the future, someone says, well, what's this district putting $200 or $300 into your account every month? Well, I go, I don't know. I guess it was for some meetings. What meetings? I don't know. They don't even know, because they can't tell me. When we change secretaries or anything else, it's like, oh, that information is gone, can't find it. Don't know where it's at. That's what I'm being told. And I appreciate those who do audits, but the audits are only as good as the numbers that are given to you. You can be given all incorrect, invalid numbers, but it can still all balance out.
Well, and I can understand that, and there is a degree to auditing where we have to inquire and gather things from management. But one of the good pieces with our audit is we don't rely just on what management gives us. We have to see that third-party documentation. So when we're testing payroll, we're looking at what came out of the bank account, what was getting direct deposited. We're looking at that third-party piece that no one within the district would have the ability to manipulate. But I do encourage you to talk to the administrators. I can't speak to what their software will provide, and we are going to talk about software as well. But they should be able to give you a stub that's showing you what the withholdings are.
Well, one would think so. I mean, it's gotten to the point where the board agreed to pay another board member their legal services fees. okay? And that member has even indicated to us, they don't know whether they got paid or not, okay, in an open meeting. So I just see problems, but that's it.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, so I'm told by the CFO that she personally gave you your pay stubs and the login information that you would need to be able to see that information.
I'm looking for paper. I'm looking for paper, okay? A paper copy.
Okay, so she stated that she printed it for you, so we'll go back over that and print it again.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from any of the board members?
All
Okay,
right.
continue.
The next step down is the student activity funds. And so this is when you have all the different groups. So maybe it's the class of 2023 or band or a football club, all those different student activity groups. And they might fundraise, they might sell candy bars, they might have athletic camps, all these different ways to raise funds. Now, the good news is when we did some interviews and we actually went to all the different buildings and talked with different people at the different buildings on what their processes were, the good news is that you have some really good bones in your procedures set up. We just want to see us make them a little bit stronger. So one of the biggest keys here is anytime there is an event that is going to generate money, we recommend that a recap form be developed and be prepared by the person in charge of that event. And the key is that recap needs to be supported by a third-party documentation that can't be manipulated. So let me give you an example. If I have a group that's going to sell candy bars, and I'm the teacher in charge of that group selling candy bars, at the end of the event, I'm going to fill out this recap sheet that says, here's the name of the group, here's the event, here's how money is raised. And if it says it's $1 a candy bar, then I'm going to attach to my recap sheet the original invoice of when the candy bars were purchased for that sale. Because with that invoice, I can see that I had 1,000 candy bars purchased, and I'm selling them for $1 a piece, so I need to have $1,000 in deposits. So that's that third-party piece that connects the dots. And now it might be 6 or 7 deposits that make up that fundraiser, but that recap sheet is then going to say, here are all the dates that those deposits were made, here are the amounts, and here's where it totals. It's not always going to work out perfect because things happen and people make mistakes, but this is going to hold people accountable. And then the business office should be receiving those recaps. And I'm not saying they need to personally audit every one of them, but they should be spot checking just to hold the buildings accountable for that. But having that third party attached to that recap sheet to connect the dots is key. The next one we had as a significant deficiency is software functionality. Now, I want to be clear. I am an accountant. I am not an IT person. So I don't want to pretend to understand things I don't understand. That said, we also, and I guess maybe we could have put this under difficulties encountered as well. I didn't think of it as part of that, but it probably is. But we did run into difficulties during the audit in that the software was not able to provide us with certain reports that we needed to do our job. And so we had to do a lot of different back doors to get to where we needed to be. And I know management had to work really hard on trying to pull information because the software was not able to generate that information. Now, maybe the software can generate it, and we just don't know how. But I do know that the district and myself reached out to other districts with the software saying, how do we get this report? It has to be out there. And we were not able to come to any answers in doing that. So we are just recommending that a full analysis of your software be taken to determine, is it cost effective to look into something else? Do we need some additional training on the software we have so that we can get the reporting that we need? But there are very important reports that for any business office and auditor are crucial that were not able to be generated. So that's something you're just going to have to look into and talk about. I don't know if the answer is training or if the answer is looking at software, but There has to be more.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
because I want to ask the administration, because I remember we had a gentleman up here that was addressing software. We had a gentleman up here that was addressing software, and I remember we voted on a contract, and he was supposed to connect some software, and he was telling us what other districts in the area had that he had set up, and I done forgot his name,
Is
but
that payroll? Because I did hear that the ISD is changing payroll.
it wasn't, right. I understand. My question is, we had somebody come up here, a gentleman, and I forgot his name, but I remember somebody on the board asking him about, Ms. McIntyre, she was asking him, was it compatible to other districts, what he was doing? Could we compete? Now, I don't remember that gentleman's name, but to my recollection, and it's not always on point, I thought he was supposed to be getting us updated so we could click the button and get our readouts and stuff. Now, I don't know, maybe we need to look back at that, Ms. McIntyre and then Ms. McNeil.
So aren't we on a waiting list to get updated, and we're kind of at the bottom of the waiting list?
So as of today, our tentative roll date from the doc space to the online version is the end of January, like January 25th, I think is my first parallel payroll that I'll run online, where I'm still gonna run it in my DOS, but I'm also running it on the new online version.
So, I mean, we're aware of this, but our hands have been tied, and in the district, like the whole county, like they prioritized certain districts, and we're right at the bottom. And so, I mean, my hat's off to you struggling with DOS.
Yes.
I can't even imagine.
DOS
It's
is
like a tablet and clay or something that you're trying to just, it's unbelievable that you have to do that. So we're aware of it, but are we gonna be dinged that?
Well, and I don't want you to look at these as dings either. I
Yeah.
really don't. We're looking at this as a service to you, as we want to make you aware of what we came across.
And to get us efficient.
Right, so I don't look
Yeah.
at this as a ding, I don't consider this a finding, it's not like that. This is our recommendation of, hey, this is something we ran across, and I know that the business manager knows, I didn't know if the board knew, but I
Right.
wanted to make sure the board knew.
And we appreciate it.
I mean, an example she gave perfectly with accounts payable. You should, in any software I've ever come across that I know of until here.
Yeah.
You should be able to print a report at any given date that says, here's what you owe your vendors.
Yeah.
And
And
that's,
that is not possible.
and
So
that's why I kind of remembered it, because I asked, I said, we should be able to hit a button and know what our
Yep.
payroll, what our.
So a
Right.
report that should have taken 30 seconds to print out, the business manager and the accounts payable clerk had to spend a week going through every single check that was written after year end through the date of the audit to come up with that listing manually. And you know what? When you do it manually, there's risk of error, so we had to lower our scope, we had to test harder. So it just adds a lot of time to everybody. So
Thank you.
I'm glad you're aware. Don't
Yeah,
look at
we
this
was
as a
aware of it,
ding.
yes.
And thank you for your,
Yeah.
because that's what we
Catching it,
need. We appreciate it. Ms. McNeil?
Oh, I guess you guys answered most of my question, but I did remember exactly what Ms. President McIntyre was saying. I think we just didn't pursue it further, was getting our system updated, but I think we ran into a hiccup with GISD, because we was gonna prove everything that you needed to be more tech-friendly with the environment, but I think it was GISD, and whatever you need, I think the board is on board to make sure that happened. But I don't think it
got passed or anything.
Okay.
But thank you, did a great job on explaining that.
Okay, I'm sorry, continue.
Nope,
I just want.
absolutely, I want your questions answered. So next step down, these are areas of just, whether it's compliance or just things we feel we should point out to you, but again, don't look at them as dings, it's informational. But first is with the board minutes. I already mentioned we really struggled getting a hold of the board minutes. One thing we do on an audit end is we read all of the board minutes before we ever step foot in the field, even for preliminary. We want to know what's happened in your district before we come sit down and talk to you, so that we can already have some expectations in the back of our mind to help us draft our conversations. And I know the business office and the superintendent worked very, very hard to get us those minutes, and we were finally able to get all but maybe 6, you think?
Yeah, about that.
And so, as wonderful as you guys are to listen to, we had to watch those meetings online because no minutes were available. And so that was, some of those meetings were 5-6 hours long. And so that was a lot of time. And so it's just really important. The Open Meetings Act does require those minutes to be available within 5 days of being approved. So we just want to encourage you to make sure that that record retention policy of where those are going to be stored and housed is set in stone. So that way, not just the auditors, but anyone from the public needing or wanting those minutes needs to have access to them.
Yep.
Question.
Mr. Del Moroni?
Not just the auditors or anyone from the public, but board members. So I asked for the minutes, why we weren't getting them, and I was told, well, they're always there, and they're not always there. And the minutes are so important, I don't think people understand it. The minutes are the official business of the district. If it's not in the minutes and it hasn't been approved by the board or any organization, it basically didn't happen. I mean, yeah, we got a recording with the recordings that we could go back to, but the recordings aren't the official minutes that have been approved. And this is why I just cannot understand, this is just a one-year audit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said you didn't have about 6 of them.
Well, just to be clear, it's a one-year audit, but because it was our first year, we do have to test 2 years' worth of activity, because otherwise analytically, we wouldn't be able to know we're looking at solid comparisons. So we did have to read 2 years of board minutes.
So over 2 years,
Yes.
there were 6 meetings missing, so on average 3 per year. And who knows what it was before that. But I just, for the life of me, as a board member, as a member of the public, I can't even begin to understand why that does not happen. And we can talk about people that are overworked and understaffed and don't have the training, whatever it may be, but it has to happen. It has to happen like we're having a meeting tonight. This meeting is happening, this meeting needs to be recorded, and minutes need to be produced. But I'm glad you found that. I'm glad you talked a little bit about the payroll, because these are things that I've been talking about for months, and I've only been on the board for 13. But there's more that goes on, and I'll wait to see what you find. Thank you.
There any other comments from the board or questions from the board? Okay, proceed, please.
So the next area that we wanted to point out, and again, don't look at this as a ding, it's not. It's just a recommendation. We did see during the year in our testing that there was a non-union employee who was paid out for accrued sick time, vacation time, something like that. And completely legal, completely allowable, don't misunderstand me. But what we found was that your policy, your formal board policy as to how to handle those situations didn't address that type of a situation. And so what we have seen in many districts over the years is that you start to create these precedences, and that then people make expectations of what they've seen done in the past. So we're just encouraging you as a board to determine how you want to handle those things and make a policy So that way you don't have to worry about down the road someone expecting something because you've done it in the past. So we're just encouraging you to actually get it into policy.
Mr. Del Moroni?
Non-union employee or union employee, but non-union employee you mentioned, and I'm familiar with that. Did you even find a contract between that employee and the district?
For the specific payroll or payout we're looking or talking about, there was a signed form and we did find board approval in the minutes.
Board approval came, I think, to allow it to happen. But was there ever a contract signed between this employee, non-union employee, as you say, and the district to say what will happen when you retire? This is how much you get paid per hour or whatever?
We did find that contract, and there was no language in that contract, which is why we're saying if there's not language in there that specifies it, you really should have that backup policy of what are we going to do? How do we want to handle this? And that way it's not making decisions each time as you go, it's already having that set up with what you're going to do.
Thank you.
Is there any other board comments or questions? All right, proceed, please.
The next one down is transparency reporting, and I do believe this has already been corrected. Tish, is that correct? The transparency, yep.
Yep, the budget one and the other one's going up tonight after.
Perfect.
Financial report.
Perfect. So basically, there is state law on transparency reporting with all the different attributes that you have to have on your school's website at any given time. So when we do the audit, we come out and we test to make sure that all of those things are out there and that they were out there to the best that we can tell, timely and within the required timeline. And we did find that one or more of the budgets, do you remember? At least one of the budgets was not out there that was supposed to be out there. So that's what this is just saying. It's just making sure you know what those requirements are. And I know as soon as we made the business office aware of it, they got it out there. And then the final thing is just a verbal comment. This isn't even anything that went into writing. And what the requirement is when you're coding all of those expenses into the general ledger for the school district, every expense has to have a code in there of which federal grant is paying for it. And I want to commend the business office because if you recall, you had over $40 million in federal grants. And out of $40 million, I want to say, I could be wrong, but I want to say less than 25,000 didn't have the right code. But out of $40 million, I mean, we're talking a fraction of a percent. So business office did a fabulous job, but we just made that verbal comment just to say, okay, just a little bit closer.
Is that Ms. Kiana Murphy? Is that you, Ms. Kiana? Go ahead.
And accounting.
Ms. Kiana, good at what she do now. Go ahead, continue.
Do we have prior year? Nope. Normally, after we get through our current year comments and things we wanted to talk about, we would refresh. Here's what we said last year, here's how you've done. Well, last year wasn't our audit, so I didn't feel comfortable talking about what your former auditors stated. We wanted to do our own work. So next year, that list we just went through, that'll be on the screen, and we'll say, okay, here's what we said, here's how far you've come this year. So for next year, you'll see that, but for this year, that's all we have, unless you have more questions. And again, my information is up there, Nathan's information is up there, and we are always open to phone calls, questions, all throughout the year.
Thank you so much. Mr. Del Moroni,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
so I know you already told us, I think, but how much cash is in our general fund right now?
I can't speak to right now. I can tell you what was there June 30th.
Sure. Yeah. June 30th of this year.
June 30th in the general fund, the cash was $17,992,195.
Okay. And
What page? Tell them what page.
That was page 10.
Page 10, Chris.
And the district is running at a deficit every year?
Not in your general fund. Your general fund's fund balance was 43 million. The deficit is when you look at that big picture with all the funds and you include that net pension liability. That's what makes it a deficit, and that's only showing on
Well,
page 8.
Let me word it this way. Every year, the district takes in X amount of dollars, and they spend X amount of dollars. Are we ending up with a net inflow, or
This year, you increased your fund balance by almost 16 million in the general fund. Now, keep in mind, 4 million of that was last year's revenue that you couldn't recognize till this year. So if you pull that out of it, because I don't want it to skew the numbers, you'd be at almost 12 million.
12 million? And then out of that 12 million, is not some of that 12 million a return of, let me say, ESSER dollars?
A big portion is ESSER
And how
dollars.
much is that? 18 million. So we ran at a $6 million deficit last year. Would that be fair to say? Right.
I don't know how much is the deficit.
Okay.
Thank you.
But
So-
one thing you need to keep in mind that Nathan just said, though, is without the ESSER dollars, you also wouldn't have the same expenses. So your payroll costs were drastically higher over the last 2 years because of those ESSER stipends. So I don't think you can just pull the revenue out without also pulling out the related expenses that you wouldn't have incurred otherwise.
Okay, let me, so given that information, if there was no ESSER, especially ESSER 3, if there was no ESSER, at the end of the year, the fiscal year, we're running at a deficit.
I don't know that I can give you that answer. I wish I could, but the information you would have to provide me with for me to give you that answer is if there was no ESSER, which expenses would go away?
Sure,
And without knowing that, I can't answer that question.
okay. I think it's important for the board and the district and the public to know that of that $17 million, that's only going to hang around for so long. And at that point, then the district is,
Broke.
yeah, that might be fair to say, yeah.
Now, if you recall a little bit ago, I talked about that long-term 5 to 10 year plan and setting formally committing fund balance dollars for that 5 to 10 year plan. What I have seen a few school districts do, and I think it's brilliant, is they have taken all of the additional expenditures that they've brought on as a result of their ESSER dollars that they plan to continue, and they've tracked it out to say, okay, at what point are those ESSER dollars going to go away and we're going to have to use fund balance to keep these positions in play or to keep these services being rendered? And they've then said, okay, we want to make sure we can cover those costs for 10 years, and that's what they've formally committed their fund balance for. So that is, it's not going to be an easy task, but that is something your business office could work on, is saying, okay, what did we add because of ESSER, and what is that annual cost, and at what point are we going to have our own funds to pay for it? And that way you can game plan it out, because then you can decide at what point do we need to let go of a position that was only funded with grant money, or shift things around.
So ESSER aside, we're running at a deficit, and the only way to overcome that is on one side of the equation is to cut employees, cut wages, just in essence not spend as much money. And on the other side of the equation would be to get more students into the district.
Bringing more students in the district will always bring more revenue into the district because of your foundation allowance. I can't say, I'm not comfortable saying that you're running at a deficit without ESSER money, without the whole picture. I can't say that.
Well, the 17 million is only going to last for so many years. And if, as we were told, 6 million would be.
You're making assumptions.
Yeah, no, but 6 million is what you're saying we ran in a deficit, right?
Operational deficit.
Operational.
Where you have more expenses than revenue.
Exactly, that's what I'm,
But
that's exactly
again,
what.
but again, that's including a lot of ESSER-specific
No.
expenses.
That was taking it out, right? Taking ESSER out.
No, that was just taking the revenue out, not the related expenses.
Okay.
So part of the issue, Chris, I think is, you know, with ESSER, some items are allowable, like your claims, meaning you would traditionally hold that expense in your general fund, and it was moved to ESSER.
But
And so you're able to capture some dollars because of that.
without ESSER, how much are we running in a deficit every year? Without, if it was never here. No money coming in, no money going out, nothing coming back from the state.
Well, ESSER started about 3 years ago, we would have to sit down and go through line by line to be able to answer that question, which none of us are prepared to do at this moment.
Sure.
She just said she can't answer it, because it's a complicated financial calculation. She just said she can't answer it without looking at what the additional expenditures were because of COVID. And Chris, you keep asking the same question over and over again. This is beyond the scope of this report. We're wasting their time. We just need.
Excuse me, Chris, can you write your questions down and refer them maybe to the superintendent, or so you guys can get together?
Sure, I can write it down. It's basically, when will we run out of the $17 million?
Well, you can probably ask Ms. Tish that, because our ESSER funds are only allowed to be activated for so long. It's a sunset date on all our ESSER funds.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So what is our sunset date on our ESSER funds, Ms. Tish? Do you know that or recall?
ESSER 3 is September 30th of 2024. ESSER 2 is September 30th of 2023.
So in the next 2 years, your sunset date on your ESSER funds will be?
Yeah, that's as far as spending it, but then we'll eventually get some money back from the state, or hopefully, right?
I don't know about that.
Excuse me.
What do you mean? I don't.
Well, if it's an allowed expense, the state reimburses us, right? And that money goes into the general fund?
So, yes, so the supplanting, so wages and things that we're supplanting, we will have funds over the next 2 years, if approved by MDE, that will go back into our general fund. However, when you hear that we have this fund balance, these are monies we have now because of ESSER, but they're going to go away as we aren't granted the opportunity to supplant after September 30th of 2024.
Right.
So the reason why
And
you're hearing, you know, we're running a deficit, because actually without the ESSER funds, we would be, but we can't give you the total answer to that without
Okay.
taking out things that ESSER brought on.
yeah, so let me just say, as that goes away and as the general fund balance goes away, then we go away as a district. And we need to know, when will that money?
I'm more hopeful that we can work together to do what is necessary to keep Flint alive. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to say that.
Which would include closing
And,
schools, cutting wages, laying off.
excuse me, order. It's gonna have to be some right sizing and some building closings, and we know that, Chris. And we also run in a deficit, she's already said that. And we've been running in a deficit for, I know, a decade right now. At this point, that's how we run, in a deficit. So, you know, you can't make MDE give you money. You only can hope that they'll still fund the district. I mean, that's the best that they can. We don't know if they'll continue to fund that. Okay, Dr. Joyce, and then Ms. McIntyre.
I just want to say this, Chris, I was listening to you, and we have to put a plan together. We got a pretty good financial team, accounting team. I like the work that they've done. I met you when you first came on board. I appreciate the work that you've done and how clear you made that. This district is not going to fall, because we're going to work together as a team. We're going to put this district back together. We're going to get rid of some building. That's why we did all of this work and presentation, so we can move forward. I don't see this district as a losing You can't sit on this board and see yourself losing. You come on this board and see yourself winning. We have the staff here. What we have to do as a board is put a plan together with the staff. The board as a whole can't come in and say, I don't know, and wasting their time. You guys have done an outstanding job. This is something that when we came on board, we've been fighting about this here, moving this district forward. We done got to this point, and whatever money we are a lot better ahead. We just got a couple of things to do and move this district forward and not look at going down the tube, because I didn't get on this board to lose. I got on here to win.
And it's gonna be baby steps. It's gonna
Very
take baby
soon.
steps. It's gonna take baby steps. Ms. McIntyre.
So, yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you so much, because this actually, I mean, I know it's daunting, but it actually gives me a lot of hope, because
Yes.
Just compared to like our previous auditor, like you've done it in a way that's understandable, I think, for, you know, the community, certainly for the board, certainly for this board member. I always like to be given actionable items and tasks, and you've done that. And so I feel like we've got to roll up our sleeves, kind of read through, and I for one am going to be reading every single word that's in here, and hopefully your invitation will stand that I can call you, and we have this line of communication that we never had before with our auditors. And the fact that we had no single audit findings that's huge. So I'm positive. I mean, I understand the state of education in Michigan. All boards and districts are facing this, so we're not alone in that. This is going to be an uphill battle, but it's like the board president said, and Dr. Joyce said, we're going to come together. We're going to do this. We're going to figure it out. And it's like you said, do a 5 to 10 year plan. We've been working on that in the past. We'll just resume that and then just keep moving forward. So thank you for all your hard work, and thank you.
And I'd like to say, even without a treasurer, we didn't have any findings. We still maintained our footing. We still did the hard work. We can hold up as a district. We can. Is there any other board members that would like to? Any administrative, Mr. Jones?
I'd just like to thank the team for the hard work.
Yes.
And all that put in. When you talked about the week that it took, this for the team, I'll say Team Tish, to work on that work, that is something that happens on a regular basis. And thank you, board, for recognizing that. And I'd just like to say again to the entire executive team, thank you for all of your hard work to make sure that this audit was done properly. And we had findings last year.
Yes.
I want to be clear that we
A
did
whole
have
bunch
findings
of them.
last year.
Yes.
But to hear that there is 0 major findings mean that there's some work being done.
Absolutely.
And I just want to appreciate the team, and I take my hat off to your hard work. Thank you.
And I want to recognize Ms. Kiana and Ms. Tish, because no matter what comes upon this district, they still do whatever it is that they have to do to put it in perspective. So we want to definitely thank them
Thank you.
openly. Yes.
For your hard work, really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions from the board? Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. All righty. Thank you very much.
Public comments.
Thank you.
Stevenson and
Thank
Company,
you.
we appreciate you. Okay. The board will now hear comments from the public. We ask that you state the reason for addressing the board and that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes on the matters within the authority of the board and not address individuals by name. The presiding officer of the board shall have the right to limit the number of persons who may address the board on the same subject. Please state your name and address first before beginning to speak.
Point of order.
Yes.
I think it appears that we need to remind the public that they'll only be speaking one time this evening. Is that correct?
This is true. So this is, okay, this is it for all the, okay, go ahead, Ms. Joyce, because then we won't have a quorum. We're not taking a vote, though. Well, no, I'm saying we're not going to make any votes, so go ahead, yeah. We're just stating the rules and allowing speakers to speak. We're not making any decisions, so. The presiding officers of the board shall have the right to limit the persons who may address the board on the same subject. Please state your name and address first before beginning to speak. And we do have some members of the public that would like to speak, and at this time, put my glasses on. I think this might be Gretchen. Pardon me?
We have to have a quorum to continue the meeting, period,
Okay, well, that's fine. For public speaking?
for everything.
Okay,
It's
well,
not a
we'll
board
wait.
meeting without a quorum.
Okay, well, I didn't think it was, we ain't making no decisions, so I figured they could speak, but okay, we'll wait. We don't want to be in trouble, you're right. So we'll wait for these people to return. Ms. Pam, can you check on that for future reference to see if, because it seems like they could at least speak, we not making no moves, but I could be wrong.
We're good.
Okay, that gives us 4.
Okay. So let's start with Ms. Shalonda Byers.
Good evening, Board. My name is Shalonda Bias. I am the current principal at Brownell STEM Academy, as well as the Secretary of Congress Administrators of Flint. I have been with Flint Community Schools for 9.5 years, and I am disappointed that the board has not signed off on the Congress of Flint School Administrators contract that was negotiated with Congress and the Board of Education. As a member of Congress, I have not received a wage increase since August of 2020. In addition, I did not receive my contractual step increase, which is an additional loss of approximately $2,200 in wages, and I, like many others, earned it. At the last board meeting, the board went into a closed session and came out of that closed session tabling ratification of our contract to basically asking to see financials. But the board was a part of negotiations. So now, because of the board's failure to start negotiations in a timely manner, as well as approve our contract, I, as well as many others, have lost and continue to lose wages in a district that already pays its administrators 26 to 30% less than all administrators in Genesee County. As well, every day that our contract is not ratified, I and we, all of us Congress members, continue to lose an additional $120 to $170 per pay period. This means that I have to find money from other areas to pay for simple things such as gas to get to and from work, put food on my table, increase utility costs, etc. For example, all of this is tied to inflation. And I will tell you, everything has increased, okay? But there are companies, different organizations, whether they're education or they're corporate America across the United States, that have provided their employees with inflation increases, but Flint Community Schools has not. But we were still able to come to the table with the board and go to our members and get this ratified, only for it to be tabled. And so I'm just going to say this: each time that the board tables an agenda item, it impacts many people's lives and livelihoods, which in turn results in dedicated staff who have been here through all the turmoil who are now considering leaving to receive either a better quality of work life, more money, or both. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Donetta Moore? No, okay, she wishes not to speak, okay. Eddie Thomas?
Good evening. Before my time starts, it's been a long day, especially for your employees. We have to do something about our public speaking time. You want people to be involved, but we got to create space where they can come and give comments about the district, the board, and how it's working out. It's been a long day. I've been up since 5:30. And I got to come back and take care of my students and my staff tomorrow morning. I want to say thank you for this time to speak. I am the President of Congress, our school administrators, and negotiations were not fun. It was more of a dictatorship than negotiations. But we went back and forth about what the district was feasible to give Congress. Now, our negotiated increase, Congress have gotten about 7% increase over 10 years. 7% over 10 years. And when we come to an agreement, after going back and forth with the district administration and the board who gave input, we're put at a standstill to where after our memberships ratified our contract, presented it to the board for approval, and then you let it sit. You table it. And as Ms. Bias stated, everything has increased. Your eggs, your milk, your gas, your heating, your clothing, and we can't get our increase until you decide to approve our contract. We lose money every single day that we could be used for other things. Now, we take care of ourselves, but we also take care of our school community. We help support our families with funerals. Yes, we do. We help support our staff members who lose family members. We do. We help provide food for children that need food. We do a lot of stuff with our own monies, and that helps our district and build community relationship. But we need to get about the board's business. And when you meet for a purpose, and the purpose have made a resolution, we need to sign on it and we need to move forward. Every day that you wait to sign our contract is the money that we don't have to do the things that we need to do. You have to show that you appreciate your leadership or you won't have any leadership. And good people that works in this district, at least $30,000 to $35,000 less than you'll get in Grand Blanc, that you'll get in Beecher, that you'll get in any other district here. You're losing people. The turnover rate for your administrators, if we look at it, is ridiculous. The amount of people we leave, but it's because of the way you treat people. I'm leaving with this note. The ones who take care of the city's children, the school staff, teachers, and support staff should not have to beg for a decent wage and an adequate salary. We need to pay people what they're worth and give them the money when it's due.
Okay, we have Ms. Kelly Fields.
Good evening, Board. It's Kelly Fields, 2460 Thomas Street, Flint, Michigan. I'm not going to reiterate everything that Mr. Thomas just doled out to you. It's been since August of 2020 since we've received a wage increase. And now because of the Board's failure to start negotiations in a timely manner and approve this contract, we have all lost anywhere between $120 to $170 each pay period. That means this makes it more difficult for me to cover the cost of gas that I do not seek compensation from the district that I spend to support our families by dropping off technology, by checking on students that have not been in school, or driving to pick up a student whose family lacks transportation or misses a bus to get to school. My cost for gas this past month for just Flint Schools business alone was $102. It makes me harder to buy breakfast for my donuts or bagels or lunch for hardworking staff who deserve to be valued and loved on at least once a month. $34.28 this past month for me. It makes it harder for me to come out of my pocket to treat a student when they have made great improvements to a lunch with their principal. The cost this past month, $36.72. It makes it harder for me to buy hair supplies for a student that lacked their needs. The cost this past month, $16.27. It makes it harder for me to send a DoorDash meal to a student on the weekend whose parents decide that she is 18 years old, she can live on her own, and permanently leave her in the city of Flint to go live in another state. The student doesn't always plan for those food shortages. They sometimes encounter, so they call me and I DoorDash them. The cost this past month, $42.92. The atrocity of this closed session's negotiation with this board the last meeting suggests a much more insidious thought. It tells us that you don't trust your soup to negotiate fair and in good faith for employees that serve tirelessly and selflessly. It also suggests that the Congress group is heartless in our ask that's compared to our counterparts across the county that are paid 26% more. Several districts across this county have a starting pay where their assistant principals make currently what I make as a principal. The price for supporting our Congress group is a drop in the bucket. The cost for ratifying this contract to show you value the selfless commitment of this Congress, priceless. Everything has increased except our wages since August 2020. I am urging you to come together to approve this contract. Thank you for your time.
And then we also have another, we're gonna deal with that. We also have another speaker, I think this is Gretchen Schaefer.
Hello, board and members. I am Gretchen Schaefer. I come at this from a little bit of a different angle. I am a dedicated 30th year employee of Flint Community Schools. My mother is a retired Flint teacher from Longfellow Middle School. I have dedicated my life, my mom dedicated her life to Flint Community Schools. I have been everything from a teacher to now a principal at Potter Elementary. And as I'm not going to repeat everything that's been said, but as a loyal employee, as a loyal family to this district, I'm not leaving it. However, I'm disappointed that the loyalty is not valued, and disappointed that the board has not negotiated with the Congress. And as a member of Congress, I've not received a wage increase since August 2020 and did not receive a contractual step, which is an additional loss of approximately $2,200 of wages. As Ms. Field said, we come out of pocket for our teachers. We come out of pocket for our scholars on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. So I encourage you, please, listen to our words, listen to the loyalty in the heart of the administrators that are speaking to you, that come with boots on the ground every day to serve our students and our families. Thank you.
Okay, and I think that is, we have two more speakers. I think that is all from Congress, though, and we as a board do plan on addressing you tonight. Next, we have Jennifer Tate. Ms. Tate is gone. Okay, and then we also have Judy Presley. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Judy Priestley. I heard 4 schools that I attended mentioned tonight. I attended Potter for kindergarten, and I went all the way through Brownell, Holmes, and Northwestern. What I didn't hear was the word Washington School. Yeah, I'm going to be a dog with a bone here. I did a FOA request. I was very surprised to find out that, yeah, the buildings are insured, but not against vandalism or incendiary fires. So I talked to fellow council members. They say, oh, well, we need to talk about my school in my ward. And I send them pictures of Washington. And they go, oh, we'll shut up. Washington needs to be torn down. It's your responsibility. You don't get bids, you don't receive bids. Who's going to bid on a property that has a building that looks like it's in Beirut after the war? You need to take care of this property. It's not even secured. As I said last month, kids could go in there, play, fall, and die. It's not secured. It's an eyesore for the residents, and it needs to come down. It's been a year. How long do the residents of the 4th Ward and the city of Flint have to wait for you to do your responsibility? Thank you.
The city has some funding in it. Okay, I'd like to make a motion. Okay, is that all for our public comments? Would anybody else like to speak?
My name is Nadia Rodriguez, 1610 East Court Street. Just a couple of things I'd like to address about your agenda. Action item 1115, I was a little surprised to see that on the agenda last week. The Discovery Education curriculum that was supposed to be voted on at tonight's evening that was moved forward from last week. It's interesting that it's being voted on to be purchased, seeing as it was delivered to our building last week. I'm trying to understand how that works. I don't see action item 1116 in regards to the phones and all of that communication situation. I really hope that this board and this district takes this sort of thing seriously, as many of us do not have working phones, working intercoms in our buildings and in our classrooms. So when things happen, there's an expectation that we're to be using our cell phones, which in a professional setting, we shouldn't be doing anyway. Going on to the salary thing, one of the things, you know, every one of us has the same thing. Every single one of us can talk about the districts around us. It's embarrassing. What you're banking on right now is the loyalty of the people who work in this city, because we care. That's the only reason that you are staying open. We sit here, I sit here week after week after week, and I listen when you're talking about the professionals and you're looking at these salary schedules, and we hear constantly about how we have to be competitive for people at the administration building. We're never going to get the best of the best to take care of this district. Then when it comes to the staff of this district, the people who are putting in their time, their sweat, their energy, and all of their love, well, there's no money. Every single day. And it's interesting, because as a person who's got to try to drive around the city to find the cheapest gas I can, it makes it a little disheartening when after you hear that message, you pull up into an administrator who's filling up their boat at the same gas station. You're going to look at the action items regarding personnel. And one thing you're not going to see, because this has moved forward, is the resignation of one of the teachers at DTM, Ms. Heather Harkey, and she spoke here. She spoke to this staff. She spoke at this board meeting previously. And she's leaving and going to a district of similar size. She's going to be given years of service she wasn't given here. She's going to be getting a nearly $20,000 salary increase. She's going to have a classroom that has furniture. She's going to have a classroom that has smoke detectors. We don't have those. Her position hasn't been posted. The position of the other teacher who's leaving hasn't been posted. And part of the reason that she's leaving is because as a 5th-year teacher in this district, she has not moved a single step. Not one. Do better. Do right by your staff. We are here with these kids, and we're here because we love them, but you have to do right by us too.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to address the board? Seeing there is none, we'll close out our portion for public comments, and I'll make the motion to accept the negotiated, terms between Congress and the board, because Congress has already signed their.
So are you moving to make a motion?
Yeah, I'm trying to make a motion. And I'm the chair, so I probably can't even make the motion, but I need for somebody to, I'm seeking a motion. I'm seeking a motion in a second to approve the Congress negotiated contract, which they've already signed and that we've already agreed to. Is there any, okay.
I seek a motion to accept the contract. I make a motion, yeah, because you seek it.
Okay, and can we get a second?
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that we accept the negotiated terms between Congress and the Flint Community School District, the terms that have been negotiated between the administration and their union.
There was some discussion.
Is there some further discussion?
No, you guys was in the meeting. Did you have a discussion about anything on that contract? No. Okay.
Seeing there's no further, Chris Del Moroni?
So you're talking about accepting the contract,
Yes,
the change.
the contract that was agreed upon between the negotiating team and the administration and the Union for Congress, along with Tim Gardner. They've signed theirs, and the reason it didn't come before the board last week is because our attorney left. He was supposed to confer with the administration and get this ironed out, and he dashed out of here, so that's how it ended up tabled. So since they've signed their portion already, the only thing is holding that up is a vote. And so we're seeking that vote tonight.
I guess I haven't seen the contract signed by the two parties,
The administration.
or the change. Yeah, the two parties that negotiated.
Wait a minute, hold on. I'm not disputing what you're saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is this negotiation team got together.
This
and
what team are you talking about?
the people that negotiated for Congress, the administration, and the union.
Yeah.
And they came and
Call for the question.
I call for the question.
It's been called for the question.
I had the floor.
She
I've
called
called
for the
for the
question.
question.
She can call for it.
Now we have to vote.
So now we have to vote to accept her call for the question and to end discussion. So when I call your name, signify by saying yes to end discussion and to take a vote, or no to continue discussion. Linda Booth.
No to continue the discussion, or yes, wait a minute. Yes.
To continue discussion?
You have them tell you how to vote.
What's the question?
The question is this.
I wanna stop the discussion.
Hold on, okay, so
So-
this, let me be clear about what's on the floor. What we are doing now is she asked for the question to end discussion and to take a vote.
Right.
So we're gonna have to vote to end discussion and then to take a vote. So when I call your name, if you signify by saying yes, that's to end the discussion and take a vote. No means the discussion will carry on.
Okay,
Linda Booth,
yes.
Laura McIntyre,
Yes.
Joyce Ellis McNeil,
Yes, Danny. Yes.
Carol McIntosh is a yes, Chris Del Moroni.
You can't end discussion if you haven't had it, no.
So the motion passes, they asked for the question,
Passes 4-0.
and the motion passes 4-0.
So now we immediately have to
There's five
vote.
of us. How does it go?
4-1, 4-1. Did you say no? You
I said no.
Okay, so the motion still carries, 4 yes, 1 no.
One.
That's fine.
Now we
Okay.
immediately vote.
So, hold on, I got it. So now it's time to vote on the question. And when we ask the question, it's still, does it go for discussion at that point?
Voting on the ratification.
I know what we're voting on, but I'm saying, do I have to? So that's it, yeah, that's what
So
I, okay, so at this point, we're gonna vote on the ratification of the contract for Congress between the Flint Community School District
And that is to approve it, right?
and that is to approve
Okay.
what they've already signed
Right.
and what we already discussed. And Mr. Del Moroni?
Point of order information.
Go ahead.
We have not had discussion. I have not seen the contract. I don't know where the money's coming from, if it's ESSER or general fund, so I'm gonna be a no.
Okay, he has a right to vote.
Okay, he had the right to
Take
say
your
no.
vote.
Okay, so we're finna take the vote as to approve the contract or to deny it. When I call your name, yes to accept or no to deny. Linda Booth,
Yes, to accept.
Laura McIntyre,
Yes.
Joyce Ellis McNeil.
Yes to accept.
Yes. Carol McIntosh, yes to accept. Chris Del Moroni.
No.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 decline. Okay, next we're moving forward to the agenda.
Madam President?
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that we move to accept the paraprofessional SEIU.
and this is the problem with that, because I did check on that, Board Member McIntyre. They have not signed their document yet, or I would have moved to do theirs too, but the difference is Congress signed for the terms, and they've accepted it for whatever reason, and I'll let Mr. Jones speak to that.
Do the contract have to be, the payroll professional
LOA.
contract
The
have to be signed
the LOA.
before we vote on?
Yes.
Yes, the LOA has to be
Every
signed.
contract
So
needs
once
to
they,
be, point of information, every contract needs to be signed before we vote
We didn't
on
say
it.
it didn't need to be
Excuse me,
signed.
order.
You
order,
asked.
Order.
You asked, and I told you.
Let's get some order.
The SEU,
As-
the
yes, answer the
SEIU
question.
will be signing this, but we need them to sign it.
Before
and
we
then-
can take action.
And then we can take action immediately after. And they are aware of this. It's
and we can call a special meeting for that.
absolutely.
We
Thank
can. We can
Yes.
absolutely call a special meeting for
Yes.
that. And
Okay,
any
so to be clear, we need the SEIU union
To
to
sign.
sign so
the LOA.
the LOA so we can move forward.
And that means that they're accepting the terms of the agreement.
Okay, and so that the board is ready and awaiting
Their
their
sig-
acceptance of the LOA. I just wanted to
Yes.
state that.
Mr. Del Moroni,
I think,
Excuse me.
excuse me,
yes,
sorry.
show them the door.
Hold on.
I
Just
think-
1 second, Ms. Kamala. Go ahead.
I think both parties need to sign it, and not just one.
The Congress has signed theirs. That's-
No, not the Congress, the paraprofessionals.
That is them
They
right
are
there,
right
and
there.
there's,
They are going to
we're
sign
not
it
voting
right
on
there.
theirs because they haven't signed it, and they're saying that they're gonna sign it.
They're
And-
gonna sign.
And she's saying, this is them. Just 1 second later. This is the parapros
You're right.
and their union. The reason we're not voting on them tonight, or we would have voted on them too, because we want, like they said, we want people that deal with our kids on a regular basis, we want them to get their propers. The problem is, we can't take a vote on a contract that's not signed, so we're trying to,
Exactly.
so we're not voting on them.
Okay.
Congress, we voted on Congress, and Congress signed
know that.
theirs. So what, I'm sorry.
So both parties need to sign the contract?
No.
No.
One party. Congress and the parapros are different.
Look,
Congress-
when there's a contract, there are two parties to a contract. I don't come up with a contract and sign it myself.
Right.
Point of information.
Excuse me, point of order, point of order.
Anything.
Excuse me. It's two different unions negotiating.
I know there are two different unions, and there are two parties to a contract. That's the whole point of a contract, is you have two parties coming to an agreement.
So who's
And what
not
I'm saying
agreeing?
are the two parties need to sign it.
What the other
And-
party?
We signed.
They did.
The Board of Education.
Has to.
So when it comes to Congress signed and turned it in. We agreed. The board just have to approve.
And then they
That's
will
signed.
sign.
Got that, we did that.
That's done. The para union will be getting with us. They will
Tomorrow.
be voting tomorrow with their group, and then we will receive the LOA back to our attorney, and then at that point, it will be in the board's hand to determine a special meeting or the December meeting, whichever the board desires to approve that contract. That's
And
it.
two parties will agree to that contract. You, the administration, and the union. That's the whole point I'm trying to make.
The board and the para union.
The board approves the contract.
Wait a
The
minute.
contract is signed between two parties. It comes before the board, and we approve or do not approve the contract.
Yes,
That's what I'm trying to say.
okay. and
So
we
there's
agree.
no, don't tell me there's just one party that's got to sign the paraprofessional
No, I'm not,
contract.
I'm saying we can't vote on it if they haven't agreed to it.
Exactly.
That's why we're not
And the
voting on it.
agreement comes when both parties sign the contract.
After the vote.
You gotta vote on it before you sign it, sir.
They have to agree to it.
Point of information.
Okay, let's,
So I can't make a motion.
hold on, Miss Laura, just, go ahead, Miss Laura. Go
So
ahead.
my question is, I can't make a motion so that we can come to an agreement, because they have to, the SEIU needs to ratify and vote on the LOA. But can I make a motion to set a special meeting in anticipation of tomorrow's vote, so that we can have it on the
We
docket?
can absolutely
and
do
move
that.
forward
And we can absolutely do that, but we gotta get there first, because we have a member that is not with us, and we wanna give
Right,
him the
that was just my
opportunity
question.
to understand what it is.
No, I am perfectly with you.
Okay.
I feel that you four are not with me, not in the sense of how I'm going to vote, which you don't know yet.
Right.
But on a contract, there are two parties to a
Yes.
contract, and both have to sign it.
Yes.
And it was said that only they had to sign it.
We
And,
have to, before our people sign anything, we gotta vote on it.
No,
Okay?
we only vote to approve what they sign.
You're good.
I don't agree with that, but okay, because I don't think they should be signing stuff if we haven't agreed to it. Do you?
We're not part of the Flint Board of Education is not part of the negotiation. We don't
We
negotiate
are,
the contract.
we've been a part of that, Chris, and we've participated in it, so we've done the work. So, at the table, so, and I've been a part of that team, so how can you tell us we haven't done that? When we absolutely have.
Not as a board.
Okay, well.
Because that's why we're going to have a special meeting.
Right.
And vote to approve the contract that is signed
Absolutely.
by the two parties.
But it's
It was
signed-
mentioned
That is
20,
signed,
15 minutes ago that only the union had to assign it.
You only hear what you want to hear.
okay,
It's
let's get back to the
Well, you
agenda.
can
because
hear it
this-
in the recording.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, everybody. Excuse me. Because we're not signing anything unless we agree on it as a board. We agreed with the Congress. They signed it. We took a vote on it tonight, and our team and the attorneys are gonna seal the deal. That's how, ain't that how it's going? Okay, so is that a problem? Do we have clarity on that as a board? Okay, so now we're moving forward to the agenda, I hope.
So I would like to
Ms.
make a
McIntyre,
motion
go ahead.
to set the date and time for a special board meeting so that we can approve the LOA, the SEIU LOA and the contract once it gets ratified by the union tomorrow.
Mr. Jones, go ahead.
Can we do it Friday?
So I don't know if this helps, so I guess I gotta wait until we get to discussion, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
do
I
I
think
have?
I should wait till we get to discussion.
What is so you're making a motion to,
Create a special board meeting.
okay.
To set the board meeting.
So that's a
Right.
motion. Do we have a second do we have support for that?
Support, we just making a motion to set a date once Mr. Jones tell us what the date. I second that.
Okay, so the motion has been made and it's been properly seconded. Is there any discussion from any board member?
Yep, so I'm assuming that the board wants to do this as soon as you can, but it also goes into one of the items that we have to discuss about the December meeting. So I just want to, and the reason I say that, only reason I say that is because there's going to be some conversation about moving that meeting closer to the beginning of December. So I'm only making this statement to say that conversation is coming, or would you like to do this right away within like 24,
No,
48
this is-
hours?
So this is for a special meeting. This is for a special meeting that I'd like to have on Friday, because.
Okay, so while we, okay, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The mo-
I
and
just
would-
wanted to
and I would want-
understand.
And I would, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about going into December.
Gotcha.
So
Just wanted to
that's-
understand.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
separate.
Okay, the motion has been made, it's been properly seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Well,
Mr. Del Moroni?
so we're talking about having the special meeting, but we haven't set a day or a time, location, anything like that.
No, because we're gonna iron that out right now. They have to look at their schedules and see if they're available. 'Cause-
But we have to vote to.
Yeah, I said
yes,
Friday
we
to
do,
it.
and
Yeah.
we're in discussion now.
So I can do Friday, after 4 or 5, maybe 6.
This is simply the board coming together to vote.
What's the date on Monday?
Friday's the 18th.
Today is Wednesday.
It should be a long meeting.
How does Friday work for everybody else?
It's fine for me.
I
It's
hate
fine
meetings
for
on
me.
Friday, but if we can stick to the agenda and do the work
Yeah,
and come
yeah.
out, I would be
Right.
willing to.
Yeah.
We should
Kinda
only
like how
have
we're
one
sticking
vote.
to the agenda right now.
Excuse me,
One
I'm
item
sorry,
to vote on.
one person at a time. Mr. Del Moroni, and I'll go around to all of you.
Yeah, I think sticking to the agenda is pretty important. I don't know where this fitted in on the agenda, but
Well, you the one said that people should be able to make motions. You just said that. So that's what they're doing. Ms. Booz?
I was just saying, we only gonna have one item to vote on, so it shouldn't take us but a half an hour.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. McIntyre, did you want to say something?
That's what I was gonna say. There's just gonna be one agenda.
One item.
We just
nothing
need to
Okay.
have a time so that we can vote on
Okay,
this
so,
one thing.
and Ms. McNeil, did you want to say something?
I'm just with them.
I would
Okay.
like to say something.
So, okay, Mr. Jones?
Is it possible to make this, because Ms. Parham is gonna have to be there, is it possible to make it at 5 o'clock?
Yeah, what time
Okay.
you
I'm
want?
That's
asking,
good,
because I wanna
Friday.
see what you
5
can
o'clock
do.
is fine with me,
I'll make
yes.
a
We
commitment to
need
be
four
here.
to be able to do that, so.
So now, see, if there is no further discussion, the motion is on the floor to have a special board meeting for this Friday at 5 o'clock. Board members, as I call your name, signify by saying yes to accept this meeting or no, not to accept. Mr. Del Moroni, did you have any? Okay. Mr. Del Moroni?
yes.
Ms. Booz?
Yes.
Ms. McIntyre?
Yes.
What?
It's the
No,
time.
no, it's, I'm gonna have to
Okay.
get time off and it's gonna be painful.
Well, it
but-
should be four
okay.
of, okay, Ms. McNeil?
Yes.
And Carol McIntosh said yes for me, so there will be a special board meeting this Friday at 5 o'clock. The agenda item is to ratify the agreement between the Parapros and the Flint Community School Board and the district of the Flint Community School.
Yes.
All right. So now that
Thursdays
we're,
are weekends for me.
okay, so,
I start my week.
is there any, the public is gone, okay, my, board members, you should all have a schedule of the 2022-2023 board meeting dates, pink sheets in front of you. These meetings were scheduled earlier this year.
Right.
And you will notice that there are 2 scheduled meetings for next month, December 14th and the 21st. We need to decide how we would like to proceed with the December meetings. Since the district will be closed for the holidays, break starts on December 19th. So I'm hoping that we can have our December 20, what we used to do sometimes, and we will vote on that. We used to have our meetings concurrently. When we
Yeah.
run into this, we'd have a meeting, our cow, and we go right into our regular board meeting. So that way we haven't skipped any steps. We've done our due diligence, and it's just 2 meetings at the same time. The first meeting, you will be moving it forward to the next meeting for a vote.
Yes.
That is it. And it will be the items on the agenda, should be, unless you make some special motions that have to be recognized. So is there any further discussion concerning the December meetings for the board? Mr. Jones?
So as we discussed last night, there's something personal happening on the 13th for me. So
Right.
discussion was to have it on the 7th. So
Yes.
that I can be here and you will have 3 new board members.
Yes, so we do need our superintendent present, I would think.
If you want me to be present. Otherwise, we can have it on the 14th.
And he won't be here, and that's
And I won't
stupid
be
to
able to
have
be
new
here.
members, and I think, but go ahead, it's open for discussion.
So, because of this, because it was scheduled, I am scheduled to teach on the 7th. Because, I mean, I was like.
Right, what time do
yeah,
you
I've
get
got-
out?
It's 5 to 8, it's a seminar,
5 to 8.
you know, and it's already been
It
scheduled.
would have to be on a Wednesday, I mean, that day.
It's
I mean,
Wednesday
we
and
have-
it's a 2-night thing. It's
So
a
it's on
Wednesday
Wednesday, so we have a right
It's Wednesday
to.
and Thursday, 5 to 8.
Well, we have a right to change it to that Tuesday if you agree on it, board.
Yeah.
We could,
Possibly do the
it's in
Tuesday.
time to be posted, so I don't see
Right,
why
right.
we wouldn't be able to, Ms. McNeil.
Madam Chair, I think we could continue the format we did before last year. If we make it whatever day we decide to make it, we do both meeting, and we would not appear December the 21st because the district is
Right.
closed.
And
So
we'll-
we know, do we need to make a motion?
And that's what we're trying to get,
Okay.
because she can't make it that Wednesday and Thursday, she's not available. Can everybody make it that Tuesday then?
I can.
Mr. Del Barone?
I move that the December 14th and 21st meetings of the COW and the regular board meeting respectively be held on the same date and be held concurrently.
Support.
Wait a minute.
But we're trying to pick the day, but we support that. We're in support of that.
Yeah, before we pick a day, we need to
Okay,
I
so
didn't
support.
understand
figure out
what he
what
was
we're gonna
saying.
meet on.
He said
So-
what you said.
He's saying the same thing we
Oh,
saying,
okay.
but he's
We're gonna
not.
have, we're gonna meet on one day, and the COW and the regular board meeting will be held concurrently. So we'll have the COW first, and immediately afterwards
Yeah,
will be the full board meeting. And we won't set a time for the full board meeting, because we won't know how long the COW will be. So it'll be a COW that starts at whatever time we agree to, and whatever day, and whatever location. And then immediately following will be the regular board meeting after the COW, whatever time that gets
what
done.
is that Tuesday? What's the date on that?
So we,
December 6th.
The 6th, we got the 6th, which is that Tuesday.
So can we amend his motion
do it at
for
5
the
o'clock?
6th to make that be for December 6th at 5?
it's a
At
friendly
5, yeah.
amendment.
So you'd have to accept my amendment. Anybody supporting my amendment?
Yeah, I support. Did I make the motion?
You made the motion. Anybody can support it. Somebody else,
Support.
okay, well, it's been moved and properly supported. He moved it and she moved it. So the amendment is to have it on the 6th. Is there any further discussion? Seeing there is no further discussion, we will vote on the amendment to have the meeting, 2 meetings. Well, the amendment is to have the meeting on December 6th. As I call your name, we're gonna have 2.
2 meetings.
Yeah, on December 6th, but the amendment is about the date, though, because your amendment,
Yeah, right,
so the amendment is about the date. So the amendment is to have the meeting date scheduled for December 6th. When I call your name, board members signify by saying yes to accept this change. Is there any further discussion?
Just, do we want to set a time also?
We said 5 o'clock.
Okay.
They said, but
Is
we're
that
gonna
part
put
of the,
that, no, I'm gonna put
that's
that
part
with
of the
yours.
amendment?
Well, okay.
I mean, I didn't
December
include
6th,
that in
okay.
mine.
Okay, well, December 6th at 5 o'clock for the for the board meeting to have the cow and okay, the amendment is to have it December 6th at 5 o'clock. Is there any further discussion? When I call your name, board members signify by saying yes to change or no to leave. Chris Del Maroni?
Yes to the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Yes.
Linda Booth?
Yes.
Laura McIntyre?
Yes.
Joyce Ellis McNeil?
Yes for me.
And it's a yes for Carol McIntosh, and it passes 5 yes. Pastor Gilbert is absent, 5 yes and 1 absent. Now we will take a vote on the motion. The motion is to have the cow and the regular board meeting on December 6th at 5 o'clock concurrent. Is there any discussion from the board? Seeing there is no,
With the regular board meeting and immediately following.
I said concurrent with the cow and the regular board
Well,
meeting.
concurrent simply means immediately after, but.
Right, right. So is there any other discussion from the board? Board members, as I call your name, signify by saying yes to accept this change to have 2 board meetings on December 6th at 5 o'clock running concurrent. Signify by saying yes to accept that or no to oppose. Chris Del Maroney,
Yes.
Linda Booz,
Yes.
Laura McIntyre,
Yes.
Joyce Ellis McNeil,
Yes.
and Carol McIntosh is a yes. The motion passes 5 yes, 1 absent, nobody is opposed. We're moving forward with the agenda. Let me see. Let's proceed with the agenda. I seek a motion and a second from the board to approve Resolution 110, the personnel recommendations.
That's on page
Page,
5.
we on page 7, and the personnel recommendations are on page 5. Start on page 5. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all ain't got that. 5. Okay.
Yes, 5.
So I seek a motion and a second from the board to approve Resolution 1.10, personnel recommendations.
So moved.
Support.
It has been moved and properly supported. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Del Maroney?
So one of our speakers this evening talked about something that's not in here and somebody's leaving and then another person is,
Well, the
do we
thing
know what
is-
that was?
Well, the thing is, if this person decided to leave and we already had our thing printed out, it wouldn't have made this packet. It'll probably be on the next packet. I
Okay.
really don't, I can't justify what she was talking about, but maybe that is what has happened.
Okay, and we're only voting on what's in here.
On what's in front of us, yes. Is there any further discussion from board members? Seeing there is no further discussion, as I call your name, signify by saying yes to accept personnel recommendations 1.10 or no, not to accept. Chris Del Maroney,
Yes.
Linda Booz,
Yes.
Laura McIntyre,
Yes.
Joyce Ellis McNeil,
Yes.
and myself, Carol McIntosh, is a yes, and the motion passes 5 yes. Pastor Gilbert is not present. Yes, Mr. Jones.
So the assistant principal was, since we're on personnel recommendations, there has been discussion about the assistant principal position at DTM. So I just wanted to bring that to the remembrance of the board.
The assistant principal that was turned down for DTM. That lady passed. Go ahead.
Yeah, we discussed that at our last meeting. There was some misunderstanding, and to reconsider the assistant principal at DTM, and only the person can do that was the no vote.
And that was me?
And that was you.
So I move to reconsider the vote to hire, to approve the hiring decision for the DTM principal, assistant principal. Assistant principal.
Support.
It has been motioned and properly supported. Is there any discussion from board members? Mr. Del Maroney?
So you said someone passed away. It was the assistant principal.
Yes, yes.
The position is now still open.
Yes.
Is that right?
And the administration brought forth somebody, but it was a misunderstanding and it was voted down. And so one of the parties that voted it down is bringing it back for reconsideration. In order for this to pass, it's going to need all of us to say yes.
Okay.
And we have somebody that died. This is not a created position.
Yeah.
This is a vacancy created due to death. And DTM has one of our largest student populations.
And they need it.
It's
So
imperative. It's
So
imperative.
that is why I think this is coming back before
Yeah.
us. Okay.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Okay, so as I call your name, signify by saying yes to support or no to not accept. Linda Booz,
Yes, to accept.
Laura McIntyre,
Yes.
Yes.
Joyce Ellis McNeil.
Yes.
Carol McIntosh is a yes for me. Chris Del Maroney.
Yes.
The motion passes 5 yes. Pastor Gilbert is absent, and the motion passes to get a assistant principal over at DTM, and I'm glad to hear that because we cannot keep stifling our staff and doing them like that. That's not fair to them. We got to give them the support they need. Okay, I seek a motion in a second for the board to approve Resolution 11.15, authorization to purchase Discovery Curriculum, RFP 23-004.
Support.
So moved.
I need
Support.
a second. Y'all support it? Ain't nobody said second. Can somebody second?
I second.
Okay, so it's been moved and properly supported. Is there any discussion from the board? Seeing there is no discussion, I'll take a roll call vote to approve action item 11.15, signify by saying yes for support or no for that lack thereof. Linda Booth,
Yes.
Laura McIntyre,
Yes.
Joyce Ellis McNeil,
Yes.
Carol McIntosh is a yes for me, Chris Del Maroney.
Yes.
Motion passes, 5 yes, 1 absent, Pastor Gilbert. Motion passes.
11:19.
Let me flip my page over. Okay, I seek a motion and a second from the board to approve Resolution 1119, authorization to approve agreement with Santec to bring audio-visual consulting for the auditorium at Potter Elementary School, and this is what they spoke to us about tonight.
So moved.
Okay, is there any further discussion? It has been moved, and I need a proper second.
Support.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing there is no discussion, as I call your name, signify by saying yes to accept this or no not to accept this. Linda Booth.
Yes to accept.
Yes. Laura McIntyre.
Yes.
Joyce Ellis McNeil.
Yes.
Carol McIntosh is a yes for me. Chris Del Maroney.
Yes.
Motion passes 5 yes. Pastor Allen Gilbert is absent. Motion passes. Next, we are moving on. Resolution 11.19. Okay, so yes, we rolling on. We are in the finance and operations portion. In your packet, there are finance and operations reports. 12.18 for the check register from October 31st, 2022. Check register 1219, balance sheets from October 31st, 2022. 12.20 budget versus actuals for the October 30th, 2022, which will be found on this is on page 136, 137, and 138. Also, 12.21 Treasury E-Debt monthly report for October 30th, 2022 on page 139, and 12.22 ESSER workbook snapshot, which can be found on page 140. Does any board members have any questions about these items?
No. Did we make a motion already?
No, it's
No, it's just,
Oh,
yeah, it's informational item.
no.
Okay. I seek a motion and a second from the board to approve resolution number 25.4. Yes, Mr. Del Maroney?
On page 140 of the ESSER workshop snapshot, maybe that could be explained to us a little bit.
Ms. Wolf, would you like to come up and explain that?
So this is the same snapshot that I do every month that I submit with my board reports. You're going to see the grant code, the award amounts based on the years, because some of them were awarded in increments throughout multiple years. The next lines will tell you how much we spent in actual expenses for each fiscal year that this grant was operating in, as some of these grants are multi-year throughout there, so they're going to have multiple years represented there. The percent remaining is how much is left to be expended on the grant. That just means that we're in the process of doing our RFPs, going through and actually expending those lines that have been brought forth through the approval process.
So for simplicity, for me, ESSER 3, we received some $100 million or so?
No, it
No.
says we are awarded. There's a
Awarded,
big difference
okay,
between being
sure.
awarded and actually receiving the funds.
What were we awarded?
The award amount there, so far, it's 99 million. We can get you the exact amount. I have my computer, I can get it if I can't pull it up here.
Is there more that will be awarded to us other than the 99?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
Right
so
now,
we're
we
at
have our
99
full
million.
award allocation.
So of that 99 million, how much have we spent so far?
Point of information,
Um,
Madam
point-
President.
What is your point of information, Laura?
My question through the president is, does the trustee remember the conversation we had last week where we talked about this? We've already discussed this. We've already had this discussion.
Well,
I mean,
Well, I thought we were asking the question last week, and they didn't have all the numbers.
well,
I'm just wondering, if
We-
we're gonna just repeat the
we're
questions.
almost through this. We're
Well,
almost
we
through this.
repeat them because we don't have the answers.
Excuse me, Porter, we have a board member with a question. Ms. Tish is up there. Let's give him the opportunity to get the information that he needs. We're not taking a vote on this. This is simply an informational item. So Ms. Tish, would you please
Absolutely.
give him the information so we can proceed?
Can I,
So-
can I say this? Before I lose my quorum, can I get through these two items and Ms. Tish can then address that?
Yes.
Because if we lose the quorum, this will be almost 4 board meetings that we did not address these last two items.
And we-
Let's use our time wisely.
Yes, ma'am.
please.
I'm just asking. I only can
Well,
ask.
well, let's ask Mr. Del Moroni, because he's the board member with questions,
Yes.
and we want to be respectful to him
Right.
as well.
Okay.
What they're asking is, can we get through the agenda and then Ms. Tish come back and explain this to you so that we don't.
You know,
lose-
I think the board's going to do whatever they want to do, so.
No, we're asking
No,
you.
we just
Well,
asked.
I'm just trying to get some answers as
Get
to,
some answers. We agree with that.
okay, I mean, I don't know why everyone's all of a sudden
And we
ready
don't want to
leave.
lose our quorum, so Ms. Tish, are you?
Why are we ready to lose our quorum? I mean,
Because
it's-
we can't make
9:30.
them stay, Chris. We can't make them stay, and if they leave, we need 4 people
I
to
understand
move
that.
this stuff.
Because it's 9:30, Chris. It's time to move it on. Like, we've been here a
It's bedtime.
long time.
Okay, a point of
Everyone's-
order. Come on, we wasting time. Ms. Tish, come on and give them what he
Okay,
wants so we
so
can.
if you look at ESER 3, for example, on page 140, spent in 21-22 are actual recognized expenses that we did in that fiscal year.
What was that amount?
That $12,240,694.32.
And of that 12 million, how much have we received back from the state?
We have done all those cash draws, so we've received the full amount.
So we got the 12 million, so we've, out of the 99 million, we've only spent 12 and got it all back.
Well, we spent 12 in 21-22, and between July 1 and October 31st, when I ran this snapshot, if you look at the line below it, it states in 22-23, which is the current operating year, we have spent $69,646.47. And we do cash draws at the end of this week, which means tomorrow, when I go in, I'll be doing cash draws.
And if you'd like to get with Ms. Tish, you're more than welcome to go up to the district and get those final numbers, Chris.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I seek a, which, am I at 11? 25.14? Okay, got it. I seek a motion and a second from the board to approve Resolution 25.14, authorization to purchase approved items from the amended Elementary and Secondary Emergency Relief ESSER Fund 3 grant.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
That's that 80 million. Oh, we got questions on that.
Okay, is this the $80 million situation? Well, but it's an amendment to that. It's not a full 88. Some of that has already been voted on, which is how much? So you,
That's what the one that we want her to kind of explain.
okay, so can you explain the dynamics?
Can I do it in this?
Go ahead. You have a mic. You have a mic.
So we made an amendment of $16 million that was additionally allocated. Tish and I met, our goal with ESSER is try to supplant as much as possible, meaning that expenses that were directly charged to the district's general fund, we're looking to offset those costs into ESSER. So with this amendment, it was just about $16 million. We added $1 million for the phone contract that you all have been looking at. We added utility bills, our water and electrical, our school libraries and school classroom supplies as additional expenses because we know 20% of these funds have to go towards and address student learning loss directly. Additionally, we added an additional year of our contracted services for our technology. So that contract, which would normally be out of the general fund, we added an additional year of that into there. So and the cost for the school furniture. So that's where that $16 million, where we went from the $66 million that you all had already approved up to the $8.2 million that this amendment represents. So we still yet need to budget to $99 million. So you will see multiple amendments as decisions are being made. Because even like they said tonight with Santec, the bid contracts came in lower. So we would go in and make an amendment to amend those lines lower so that we can reallocate those funds somewhere else. But the goal here is to try to supplant, to pull as much off of the general fund, these fixed costs that we have, as much as possible, so that we can, if we're incurring the cost monthly, we can get reimbursed monthly, and we're implementing and maximizing the grant funds. So as I think I said this initially, you're going to see multiple amendments with this grant because we have to continue to monitor the expenditures to make sure we don't leave $1 on the table.
So the translation, I'm going to let you go, Ms. Jordan. So the translation is 60-some million dollars of that money has already been voted on and approved by this board. We're surplanting, which means we're spending ESSER fund dollars on stuff that we usually take out of the general fund dollars. And the surplant, that's how we're getting the money back into the general funds, which is what the auditors spoke of tonight.
Yes.
So it is not money coming out of our general fund. It is funds that they are going to have to spend anyway. And if they don't spend the funds, we lose them. They go back to the state. They go back to the government. So that's the deal on the supplanting in this. This is not an 80-something million dollar item just coming out all of a sudden. It's an amendment. It's $16 million amended to $60 million that we've already approved. Ms. Joyce had a question.
I just want to say you guys are doing a great job. The auditors verify that you're doing the right thing with those ESSER fund money. I don't question it, but I kind of would like to say, like, maybe you can try to kind of drop a little note on some of this stuff, so then it won't look like, then it'll click back to us if in the future. But you guys have done a great job. I am going to approve it. I have no problem with approving it.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing there is none, we're going to take a vote to pass resolution number 25.14, the authorization to purchase approved items from the amended elementary and secondary emergency relief ESSER Fund 3 grant. As I call your name, board members signify by saying yes to approve or no to disapprove. Linda Booz. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
A second.
So who moved that? Okay, so you seconded? Okay, so it's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? See, we weren't supposed to be discussing if we didn't do that, but okay. Seeing there is no discussion, as I call your name, signify by saying yes to accept or no not to accept. Ms. Booz.
Yes.
Laura McIntyre.
Yes.
Joyce Ellis McNeil.
Yes for me.
Carol McIntosh is a yes for me, and Chris Del Maroney.
Yes.
The motion passes 5 yes. Pastor Gilbert is absent. We're moving along with our agenda. I seek a motion and a second from the board to approve resolution item number 25.15, authorization to purchase approved items from the amended Michigan Comprehensive Literacy State Development Project Grant.
So moved.
Second.
What?
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any questions?
I don't have 2515 on my agenda.
It's on the back. Second.
It's on the next page.
No.
At the top.
Yeah, flip
All
it
right,
over.
I see it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Like I said, we had a motion and a second and discussion for any board members.
And that's that presentation they did by MDE. We saw that literacy program, so we know that's a necessity.
Okay. Seeing there is no discussion, as I call your name, when I call your name, signify by saying yes to accept or no to not accept. Linda Booz.
Yes to accept.
Laura McIntyre.
Yes.
Joyce Ellis McNeil.
Yes.
Carol McIntosh is a yes for me. Chris Del Maroney.
Yes.
The motion passes 5 yes, 1 absent, Pastor Gilbert. The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Jones. I think you were supposed to be doing that.
That's okay. I didn't want to stop you.
Remarks from individual board members. Does any board members have any remarks? All right. Seeing there is none.
I got one.
Okay, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Ms. Booz, for your service. Thank you for what you've done as a board member, being a part of the board. Ms. Booz, thank you for your service. We appreciate everything that you have impacted being a part of this board. I just wanted to say that if you did not come back to the table, I wanted to say that to you. We love you and we appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody here.
The time is now 9:39, and at this point, this meeting is adjourned.